Good morning, Denver, Colorado. It is 6 a.m. on this Thursday, October 10th, and you've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations, you're waking up in the greatest country in history. We're off and running. And today we are gearing up for a whole nother morning of engaging discussions, critical analysis, most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Phone lines are open. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. It is the morning following a crazy hurricane, Milton, that made landfall last night, slamming into Florida with destructive winds, catastrophic storm surges, multiple fatalities were reported coming from tornadoes in Florida. That's wild. More than 3 million people this morning are without power. Hurricane Milton made landfall near Siesta Key last night as a Category 3 storm with winds of 120 miles an hour. Coming up in the 7 o'clock hour, we're going to talk with Rory O'Neill, national correspondent with NBC News Radio, who is down in Florida. He'll be joining 7 o'clock hour. Will Trackman, 8 o'clock hour, general counsel for Mountain States Legal Foundation. They were one of the members of the team at the U.S. Supreme Court yesterday. Garland v. Vanderstook. This is the ghost gun ban. And Will Trackman, friend of the show, was there fighting for your Second Amendment rights. We'll be talking with him in the 8 o'clock hour. And then we're going to preview the Trump rally as well. But coming up just after news and comment with Blake Olson, Aaron Real, national correspondent of NBC News, is going to be detailing the cost of healthcare soaring even as inflation is easing. What is going on? I thought Obamacare was going to fix all this. It's gotten more and more expensive. So we'll be talking with Aaron Real in just a second. But first, news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Good morning, Jeff. That jersey is ridiculous, by the way.
Prime, baby.
Oh, man, you are crazy. All right, we'll talk about that later. 50 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 81 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
I'm born and raised in Florida. We actually lived in Fort Lauderdale when Andrew hit, and we evacuated to Sarasota. So now it feels like, here we are almost 30 years later, just doing the opposite.
We just barely got cleaned up from Hurricane Helene, literally 2 days before.
To be honest, my insides right now are shaking. I feel like crying.
Hurricane Milton hit last night as a powerful Category 3 storm, bringing life-threatening storm surge, heavy winds and rain. A flash flood emergency continues for portions of west central Florida. The storm has left more than 3 million customers without power. And coming ashore earlier at Siesta Key, it's been downgraded to a Category 1, but Michael Brennan has a little more here from the National Hurricane Center.
We saw, catastrophic impacts in the Tampa Bay region across much of the West Coast down to Fort Myers in terms of storm surge. We've seen the wind damage across portions of the Tampa, St. Petersburg area. We saw substantial hurricane force wind gusts all through the I-4 corridor. And even still this morning, strong winds and storm surge ongoing along the East Coast.
Search and rescue teams from Colorado are prepared to help. They flew there just before the storm made landfall. The task force shared an update on Facebook to say that all 80 members will wait in Fort Blanding until the storm moves out and then get their assignments to help. Former President Trump in Pennsylvania last night said that we should all pray for the people in Florida. He'll be in Aurora tomorrow for the big event and is planning to hold a rally at Madison Square Garden soon.
It hasn't been done in many decades, but we're going to make, how could New York be run worse than it is, right? With all the problem, everything is corrupt in New York, and we're going to make a play, and let's see. I mean, I think that, the migrants The migrants have taken over Madison Avenue. They've taken over Fifth Avenue. They've taken over the parks. The kids can't play Little League. You know, it sounds like a trivial thing. It's a big deal when you have a son that's a Little League player and he can't play. So we're going to go Madison Square Garden. We went to the Coliseum, Nassau Coliseum. We could have filled up the Nassau Coliseum 3 times. It was incredible. We left there a few weeks ago. It was incredible. So we're doing Madison Square.
Reports say the rally at MSG will take place on October 27th. 2 Colorado officers are recovering from a shootout that put a neighborhood in lockdown Wednesday. One was struck by a bullet near his shoulder. The other was hit by glass and shrapnel. They were outside a Thornton house when people reported hearing gunfire inside. Police say a man came out and started shooting at the police, who fired back. About 20 minutes later, a SWAT team entered and found the suspect dead. An Adams County deputy has died after being hit by a vehicle in Fort Lupton. Police say Joshua Tapia was off duty and on foot when he was hit Tuesday night on Highway 52. The driver of the vehicle stopped at the scene, called 911, and tried to help Tapia until first responders arrived. Tapia was a deputy for more than 25 years. The Justice Department may ask a judge to break up Google's search engine from other parts of its company. Federal prosecutors accuse the tech giant of holding an illegal monopoly over online search. And this one made me sick as I ate my oatmeal this morning. Kamala Khan on with the biggest fraud, Howard Stern.
Listen, but the thing about Liz Cheney, let me just say, she's remarkable. She's smart. She is a dedicated public servant. She has shown extraordinary courage in this moment where there's such violent, divisive language, that she would put herself out so publicly and say, I'm country before party. And, you know, she and I don't agree on everything.
No.
But the fundamentals we do agree on.
But she's saying my one big issue is I believe in democracy and the people's right to vote.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's the decision. And she said, I don't care about particular issues right now. I need a country that's free.
So oh God, can you believe that?
So
yeah, I can.
The Liz Cheney, Kamala Harris rally they did together at the founding place of the Republican Party, by the way.
Right.
By the way, who runs that, and why did they rent it to Kamala Harris? That's the question.
Well, I think we know the answer to that now.
Right. So they have these big signs everywhere that say "country over party," right? And someone pointed, it looks like they're having a country over party, right? Like it's a party because the country's over.
Yes, because the country is over. Well, you got that right. If you listen to them, now you know what the deep state looks like. You have the Cheneys, the Bushes, the Harrises, the Clintons, the Obamas, Queen Liz, freaking Cheney. God, what an embarrassment. She is horrific. I mean, and they have something huge on Howard Stern. No one has flipped more than that dude. What a clown show. Unbelievable.
I know he used to fight the man. Now he's just
100%
he
fought
being
everything.
the man.
Liz Cheney. He's sticking up for Liz freaking Cheney. What a joke, man.
So a few days ago, John Bolton and Vivek Ramaswamy did a debate. I don't know if you saw this, but they
did not see that.
Defending. Well, they were arguing over the nature of the deep state and neoconism and all this. It was brilliant.
I've got to watch.
It was hosted by our friends at the Steamboat Institute. Great conservative think tank on the Western Slope, and Vivek Ramaswamy pointed out, he kind of provided a definition of what the deep state is and what America First is, and I thought it was brilliant. He just goes, America First is the argument that those people that we elect should run the country. That's it.
Yeah.
That's America first. Like the people that we elect should run the country.
Imagine that.
Not a horde of bureaucrats, not a secretive group of billionaires,
not unelected officials.
Not unelected officials. Yeah. The people that we elect should run the country. I thought that was great.
Man, I've got to check that out. So it's on, you said the Steamboat Institute.
Steamboat Institute did that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. No, they've done some great. I remember when they had Star Parker there, I think one year. That was phenomenal. Unbelievable. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. Tennis great Rafael Nadal is retiring. The 22-time Grand Slam champion released a video message this morning saying he will retire from tennis at the end of the season. That dude is amazing. 46 in Castle Rock, 47 in Lakewood, 50 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. It's Thursday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Another day of sunshine in the Front Range. Highs this afternoon in the lower to mid 80s. Lows tonight low and mid 50s with light winds. Cold front comes in tomorrow. That will cool us off to the mid 70s. Wrapping up the work week. Keeping it dry though with hazy sunshine. Lows Friday night low 50s. Back in the low 80s Saturday. Mid 70s Sunday. Weather brought to you by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A DeWalt Atomic 20-volt max cordless impact driver kit, valued at $160. Get it now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Well, tomorrow's the big day. DJT in the house. Donald Trump at the Gaylord in Aurora. Doors open at 10 a.m. Rally begins at 1 p.m. I believe, from what I'm seeing online, that people cannot get tickets anymore. I think it is sold out at this point. But who knows? Keep trying. Maybe things open up. But you got to respond quickly when these moments open up. And it is going to be a lot of fun out at the Gaylord. This is the big hotel right off of E470 out by the airport. I hosted the Western Conservative Summit there one year, and it was a ton of fun. Great location, good restaurants. By the way, Joan from Lakewood texting in, the Gaylord Resort has two-night rooms for $1,000. And the Vance fundraiser, I guess, earlier this week was $20,000 a ticket. There's some high-end donors out there in Colorado. That's a good one, Joan. Yes, I am not one of them. I will not be paying $1,000 to stay down there for 2 nights. And I cannot buy a $20,000 ticket to hang out with J.D. Vance. But big news from 710 KNUS, we will be broadcasting live at the Trump rally down there tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. So if you are down there, want to swing by and say hi to us, we're going to be down there broadcasting right next to the room where the event is taking place. So if you can get down there a little bit earlier and swing by, we'd love to see you. You could take a picture with Bill. Bill likes to do the silly pictures.
Oh yeah, we can do that. Come back and come around and say hi.
A little fist, fake fighting pictures, all that fun stuff. So we'll be down there from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. live broadcast from the Donald Trump rally in Aurora, Colorado. And guys, we just don't get these much anymore. As a swing state, we used to get a lot of them when we were a swing state. But since we've no longer a swing state, we're lucky to have DJT swing by even just one time. All right. Joining us on the Jeff and Bill show is Erin Real. She's a national correspondent with NBC Radio. Headline out of the Wall Street Journal: healthcare premiums are soaring even as inflation eases. Back-to-back years of increases in premiums have added to the average cost of family coverage, reaching roughly $25,500 this year for employers and workers. To provide some insight for us, Erin Real. Good morning, Erin. Thanks for being on the Jeff and Bill show.
Oh, thank you for having me. I love chatting with you guys. Yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal out there. And one of the reasons you gave all the numbers, we have all those, and I know numbers on listeners' ears hurt, so I'm not going to repeat it. But one of the things that is driving this is that generally healthcare services are locked in under like these multi-year contracts. So even though we've seen inflation come down, it's still up. And I know people hate when you say that because it's like, well, things are still expensive. They are. The best you can hope for with inflation is wage gains. But because of these multi-year contracts, it's going to likely increase into next year as well. It's not like a fleeting thing that you begin to see recede like you do other sectors of the economy. This sticks around much longer.
That's a great thing to wake up at 6 a.m.
I know. I'm sorry. Well, you know what?
There's a number of people that just rolled back over and were like, I'm just going to call it a day.
I'm done. Well, I have some hope here, and this is kind of like sad sideways hope, but it's hope. There was an incredible article yesterday that I was reading. Apparently, folks are now taking medical tourism, but not like the type to get, a surgery done or get a nose job or whatever. It is now preventative care medical tourism. So what I'm talking about is like, let's say your shoulder has been in pain for a while and you're like, I should really get an MRI. I should get this looked at, but it's going to cost so much money. I'm going to have to fight with them and maybe I have a deductible and whatever. I can, it'll be fine. And I probably just need to sleep it off. And then 3 months later, you're like, my shoulder still hurts. So you should get that checked out. And now for things like an MRI or just basic blood work or anything that might be ailing you that's like slightly preventative, but is going to be such a drama to have done here, people are going to pretty much any developed nation, like industrialized nation in the world. So you can go anywhere from like Portugal to Thailand. They can take an MRI. They can take your blood. You can either have someone read it to you there, or you can bring it back home and have someone interpret the scans or the tests or whatever. But this is all preventative medicine. And while, let's say, like an MRI, for example, is going to cost you 5 Gs here, best case scenario, it cost you $300. And you know what? You also got to see Porto in the spring. I don't know, like wherever you decide to go. So this is really interesting to me because I think of my husband who grew up in Mexico, and his mother would always say that, like for like dental visits, they would go to Houston. It was just like a part of their lived experience. Like they just did their medical stuff there. I'm like, it's incredible that we're now seeing it turned around where people are just getting basic preventative care in other countries.
Wow. We're talking with Erin Real, national correspondent with NBC Radio. I've noticed in my circles, and I'm in the kind of the conservative movement, this idea of make America healthy again.
Yeah.
And this desire, or I guess just first of all, this realization that we have a serious obesity issue. We have serious heart issues, depression, the ability to make kids. I mean, all this stuff that is compounding. And I was hanging out with the author of Good Energy. This was a New York Times bestselling book about getting control of not inflation, but why am I thinking the word? The
Freudian slip, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Inflation. But the fact that our bodies are seeming to fail, and we've got to get a lot more serious about the quality of food that we're eating. It seems like Americans are waking up, at least in my circles, to the idea that you can't be running to McDonald's all the time.
You know, it's so funny. And like, it's always ironic. You see like the conservative circles and then also like Gwyneth Paltrow at Goop, oftentimes when it comes to healthcare, are lockstep saying the same thing. Because, this isn't, it is actually like less ideologically driven and more like data driven. And that gets people less fired up. And it's actually one of the few things we can come together on. Our food is poison here. The food, like they don't allow like half the crap in our food that they allow. They don't allow half the crap in Europe that's in our food.
Right.
And you're like, listen, we're not even asking for like, we're just asking for like the same stuff that they don't allow other places. And it's corporate capture, it's big pharma, it's big industrialized food, and it's killing us. And our system is designed and set up to be reactionary, not preventative. And that's why we have things like, okay, so it's really expensive here because for whatever reason we insist on keeping insurance companies like, you know, in the black, and we do that via keeping them a part of the system, which they don't necessarily need to be if we just alter the system a little bit. And yes, you know, people get very fired up when you say socialized healthcare. They love Social Security though, but like, so let's say we're not even going to do that. The idea that like the best way to keep your population healthy is if they don't get sick in the first place, which is why many European countries just prohibit the things that make you sick. Because it's like, okay, if you just look at this from like a numbers perspective and are really cold about it, if the people don't get sick in the first place, it's going to cost less, like way less.
Right.
So how do you keep them from getting sick? You don't give them poisonous food. You make sure the food's not garbage. And then you're already, half the battle is won.
Aaron Real, national correspondent with NBC Radio. I mean, I was literally at a conservative conference among some of the best thinkers in the conservative movement, and they were saying everything you were just saying. And I kind of sat there and I was like, wow, now we're hanging out with Robert F. Kennedy. And I was like a Bush conservative. Like we have strange bedfellows, but things have merged together. And it's because of that concern about what's happening to our bodies, what's happening to our kids. And look, I was a youth pastor for years in California, and we would do ministry on campuses at middle schools. And I remember just watching the kids just eat these flaming hot Cheetos and Mountain Dew for lunch. That was the kids' lunch, was flaming hot Cheetos and Mountain Dew. And we did that for our culture's done that for the last 20 years. And we're like, we have an obesity epidemic. How did that happen?
And a depression epidemic and a suicide epidemic. And yes, like I would say that social media and technology is a big part of that. But no, listen, we're grown adults. If you put crap in your body or you put something good, how do you feel? It's really simple. You're like, and no, like this doesn't mean you can never have a piece of cake. You can, and you should. It's part of the joys of living. Food is beautiful, but it's like, no, what's not beautiful? Mountain Dew and Cheetos every day for lunch. That will make you very ill, and you also feel terrible.
Now, Aaron Real, national correspondent with NBC Radio. This may not be a fair question, but can we accomplish the health goals that you and Jeff have just outlined while still existing inside of a basic capitalist structure? And what I mean by that is the insurance companies make money when we are sick, not when we're healthy. The food companies make money with the extra chemical additives because they are cheaper and easier to put in the food rather than getting to grow the nutritional stuff. Jeff and I just had a conversation earlier this week about the ingredients list that you have on the back of ketchup that is vastly different inside of the EU and here. You can read and understand all the ingredients. They're all natural. There's like 6 of them inside of ketchup in the EU. Here, it's a whole bunch of high fructose sodium carbonate, blah, 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 all bunch of chemicals that are in there. But it is cheaper for the companies to produce that version of ketchup here than it is to produce the EU version. Can we accomplish the health goals that both you and Jeff have outlined while still functioning inside a capitalist structure? Because at the core, it's not necessarily profitable.
Of course we can, 100%. And the reason we can is because what we're operating under right now is crony capitalism. Nonsensical, like, the hydrogenated oils. How did those get in there in the first place? Don't we just need like tomato, a little bit of sugar, and some salt? Like, isn't that what's in yes, it is. And delicious ketchup, from a capitalist perspective that isn't manipulated, people will buy. They will buy it because this is how it's designed. But when you have corporate interests taking control and big food, industrialized food, basically just pushing their agenda and being like, no, let's subsidize rapeseed oil, and then we can do that. It's nonsensical. And then you have the markets that are selling only this, and then you have food deserts. There's so many reasons this isn't working. But no, from a cost perspective and like a purely capitalist perspective, listen, look at capitalism at work. People are leaving the US for corporate preventative health care. like, because it's more cost effective and excellent elsewhere in any industrialized nation. You're like, no, that is capitalism at work. And it's showing us that ours is filled with cronyism.
Talking with Aaron Real, a national correspondent for NBC Radio, excuse me, about healthcare premiums soaring even as inflation eases. A lot of this, according to the study, seems to be related to Medicare and the rising costs of serving an older population. Can you talk briefly about that?
Yes, and that is a part of it. And we do have an aging population. And as you get older, you get sicker. Okay. And listen, Medicare, it doesn't, it's a Ponzi scheme. It was not designed, like at first it wasn't supposed to be, but it always was. And a Ponzi scheme is where you bring in new people to pay the people at the top. That's it. It's a little pyramid. That's how you do it. That's what it was. So that's how it was structured. This isn't like an investment, like a pension, where you pay into it and then get a payout one day. It's designed it's structurally different. So what do you do when you have less people and then costs go up and then you have inflation and all of these things? It isn't sustainable. And we do things like print money. That's how it works. And we print money in the form of treasuries, and we have incredible outstanding debt. And both presidential candidates are going to add to it. In fact, Trump, you would think Republicans, fiscally conservative, is going to add, I believe it's $3 trillion more to the deficit than Kamala. But don't worry, Kamala's adding too. She's just going to tax. She said like the deficit that she's adding is slightly smaller because there's going to be the tax revenue where his tariffs won't bring in enough to compensate. It doesn't matter. The point being, this is all adding to the burden, to the cost burden that doesn't need to be structured like this. And our healthcare system is structured with these benefit managers and all of these things that are increasing costs that just don't need to be there. And listen, I in spite of being a journalist, I'm always hopeful. I really do think like we go through bad things, but the ship rights itself. At least it has thus far. It will get gnarly, but there will be something that will come up and just put this in a different direction, because it's going to go that way. It 100% is going to go that way. It's just a matter of time and how long.
Aaron Real, a national correspondent with NBC Radio. Thank you so much for taking time this morning to discuss this and encourage people, go eat healthier today. It'll help you in the long run, and you'll have a better life.
So this is a bad time for me to mention the McDonald's purple, another Burger King purple burger thing that they're doing with out of the family. Probably a bad
purple.
Probably a bad way. I'm sure purple's healthy. I've heard that in the food chart. Yeah. Purple is one of the healthy food groups. I'm certain.
If it's not an eggplant, don't eat it. Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you so much, Aaron Real.
Thank you. We appreciate you. Look, you got the Trump rally on Friday.
Yeah.
But there's another great event coming up November 15th where you can be part of talking to those that are on the top of making decisions and guiding the conservative direction of this country. Colorado Christian University invites you to an exclusive luncheon and lecture on Friday, November 15th, featuring the 48th President of the United States, Mike Pence, and his wife, former Second Lady Karen Pence. Partnership with the Centennial Institute and CCU President Eric Hogue. This event offers a unique opportunity to engage in conversation with Vice President Pence, one of America's most dedicated public servants, sharing his insights on the future of the conservative movement. Be among the first to experience the new Armstrong Center as CCU launches its President Speaker Series on this historic occasion. Go to ccu.edu/Pence to get tickets and learn more. Limited tickets are available for breakfast with Karen Pence, lunch with Mike Pence, and morning and evening lectures. Throughout the day, you'll engage in conversation on leadership, faith, service with these distinguished guests. Please join CCU on November 15th for these events with Mike and Karen Pence. Go to ccu.edu/Pence to get tickets and learn more. That's ccu.edu/Pence. That notion of crony capitalism, that is part of it. That is why you're having this merger of the right and left around being healthy again.
Yeah.
And it's to her point, it's more data driven. And I think also, at least in my circles, all the people that I grew up in the conservative movement with for the last 20 years are all now in their 40s. And so we talk about our health a lot more than we did in our 20s.
Oh, heck yeah.
So we do like breakout sessions and hear speakers and read books and all that stuff. But that notion of crony capitalism, that is very frustrating to kind of the America First conservative worldview too, because we just don't like the idea of the kind of special interests guiding this democracy in a bad way. I hate it. I go down. It was the one thing that drove me nuts more than anything else. Being running a whole lobbying team down at the state capitol was watching votes be decided, bills be written long before the people ever got involved. Right? We didn't. A lot of times, those lawmakers didn't even write the bills themselves. These lobbyists wrote these bills, would hand them to the lawmakers. Votes were already decided. All of this took place behind closed doors. It didn't even matter if you went down to testify. They didn't care. And so that notion of kind of special interest government, man, Aaron's comments got me on that one.
Oh, well, but it's how the structure is. They write the bigger checks. And oddly enough, when the lawmakers leave, where do they go? They go and work for lobbyists.
They go become lobbyists.
Yeah, they go become the things that they say
the
they
biggest
dislike.
houses in Northern Virginia by far.
Oh,
huge mansions.
Yeah.
It is why Northern Virginia is the wealthiest zip code in the world, I think, was because of the lobbyists.
Yeah, it is. And I'm sorry, and our approach to healthcare is somewhat backwards. I still fail to see why your employer needs to provide your healthcare. That seems dumb. And especially, and this is the reason why I say it's dumb, is we talk about the ideas and the pressures inside of the free market, but we don't have that choice. No one does. People listening, very few people listening to our show right now have that choice to go out and choose their specific healthcare provider. Because if you do, you're going to have to go buy it on the open marketplace, and it's very expensive, or you've got to go with the Affordable Care Act. And that's a different set of constraints based on what you're allowed and what you can and can't do. But we still tie it to our employer. The only thing that I get a choice here on my employer healthcare from Salem, which is a very good program, is what level. I don't get to choose who my provider is.
Yeah.
I don't get to choose if it's an HMO or a PPO or that. Sometimes I do, based on certain companies can get you into either one of those. But most of the time, they decide that for you based on the contract they negotiate, because they come in to the healthcare people saying, look, we have this large pool of people. Let's discuss a rate that is going to be less than what the person could probably get there on the street, but it also locks you in for a number of years and is always, always, always going to have a ratchet up effect. The cost is never going to go down. And if you switch from one healthcare provider to another, costs are going to go up again. And I just think that our approach to how we have structured the healthcare system is a little bit backwards. And I'm also curious about why we feel that an insurance company is always going to have your best interest in mind, because they only make money if you don't use the service.
Yep.
That's when they make the mostest of their money, is if you don't come in and have to get all the stuff. And that's why they ding you for everything else on the tail end. And then we can go into the cost structures inside of hospitals. But we have gone into this with a very, very weird idea. And I still have no one that can explain to me reasonably why my employer still needs to provide my healthcare insurance, and we can't let some of the free market pressure of individuals out there. Now, at the first blush, we would all pay more, because that's what would happen, because it would be more expensive to insure an individual than it would 10,000 people or 500 people or even 50 people inside of an organization. But you'd assume that based on competition, those prices would then have to get down.
And then the whole lack of price transparency.
Oh, that's ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, they don't want to tell you. They don't want to tell you. And one of the things that is nicest about my family, that I feel luckiest about, is the fact that my wife worked in insurance. She can read those billing codes. She knows exactly what is going on. Yeah, in fact,
a skill set.
Here's one of the things that is the best. When you go to the doctor's office and they have you see the nurse practitioner instead of the doctor, that happens, and that's okay. That is perfectly acceptable based on time frames and what they're looking for.
Right.
Yeah, they'll bill you for seeing the doc, and that's a different fee. It is a larger fee than seeing the nurse practitioner. If you don't know the coding, they're going to take that extra money out of your pocket every single time, and no one cares, because their lobbyists make a lot of money and talk to the right people. They don't care.
Got to clean up the swamp, the healthcare swamp, and conservatives and liberals, I think, could unite on this. Give us a call. Your thoughts, 303-696-1971, Wall Street Journal reporting. Healthcare premiums are soaring, even as inflation eases. Welcome to a progressive country like San Francisco, where everything's more expensive, and it sucks. All right, we'll continue. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Wayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
President Donald Trump will be holding a rally later this month at New York City's Madison Square Garden, according to campaign sources. The rally is set to take place on October 27th, just 9 days before the election, and organizers are expecting a massive crowd. Trump is no stranger to huge crowds. In fact, last month, the president held a rally at the Nassau Coliseum in Long Island and drew a crowd of 60,000. Then his rally in the Bronx over the summer had more than 10,000 supporters show up. Not to mention his second stop in Butler, Pennsylvania, saw more than 60,000 attend, and a whopping 100,000 people showed up to his rally in New Jersey back in May. Jury selection has started in the corruption trial of former Illinois House Speaker Michael Madigan, once the longest-serving legislative leader in U.S. history. Madigan is charged in a multi-million-dollar racketeering and bribery scheme that included the state's largest utility, ComEd. Federal prosecutors allege that the Chicago Democrat used his power not only as a speaker, but in other roles, including as head of the state Democratic Party, to run a criminal enterprise to amass even more wealth and power. Madigan and his co-defendant, Michael McLean, have both pleaded not guilty. Nearly 200 potential jurors are facing questioning by attorneys in court. The U.S. Department of Justice is considering asking a federal judge to force Google to sell parts of his business in order to eliminate its online search monopoly.
In Dallas, Christina Wayo, Salem News Channel.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A DeWalt Atomic 20-volt max cordless impact driver kit, valued at $160. Get it now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking rising healthcare costs, even above inflation. What is going on? Great interview. We just wrapped up with Aaron Real, national correspondent for NBC Radio. Love to get your thoughts. Let's go to the phone lines. Jim, Denver, good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. When you consider these workers around the country that do have collective bargaining and how much of their health care coverage falls on those contracts, over the last 30 years, there's statistics that show that these people are paying up to 42% of every raise that they negotiate, and it goes directly into the health care markets or health insurance markets, not even health care. And they're just trying to hold on to their benefits packages. Now, they do have the Cadillac, which we would consider good health care, which I guess that's what our representatives and our lobbyists get, right? But the rest of
theirs
us
is
are
better.
stuck with.
Theirs is better.
Well, yeah, they have total socialism.
Yep.
Total socialism there. So they've got it handled. But these employers in this nation are being held back by the health insurance markets, and the government has no place putting this on the employers. And that's the reason why a majority of the employers have to come up with some sort of a scheme just to get into that tax credit health insurance credit that you get on your taxes. But there's so few people, there's so many people, I should say, that do not have health insurance through their employer, or it's worthless when they go to the doctor. So we've got a big problem with unhealthy people in the way we eat and the way we think and the way we compete. And she brought up Europe and the way they do things. They don't even allow companies to put food that's unhealthy out there on the street in the manner in which we do. Ketchup is not a vegetable.
No, in fact, Jim, guess what? You know what? There is a very popular candy that you cannot get in the EU. And it's incredibly popular here in the U.S., but you can't get it because of the chemicals inside, specifically the dye. I think it's yellow dye number 8 and the red dye number 5 that is used in it. And that is Skittles. You can't get Skittles in much of the EU because of the chemical dyes they use inside of it. And that is a huge problem. There are countries in the EU where you can't get Doritos because of the partially hydrogenated oils and how they have to make them there. And because that's what we're doing. And I hear what you're saying, because we all know people personally that either they're in unions or just in, working for themselves or working for a company where their wage gains have been eroded by healthcare costs. I still remember, and this is over a decade ago, if not more, sitting in a room with a bunch of radio people, and the company we were working for at the time announced a change in our healthcare and talked about, here's what it is, we're going with a new provider, and this is the change, and you're going to have to do this, and blah, 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 and here's the premium. This guy who's been working there longer than I have, but is a row in front of me and over to the right a little bit, all of a sudden throws down his pen and he goes, there goes all my effing raises for the last 5 years. All the wage gain he had made in the past 5 years was eroded in 30 minutes in a meeting about a change by his employer for health care coverage. He just went back 5 years in his earning potential, into what he can put on the table, into paying for stuff that he can do with his kids. This is a man that had 2 kids at the time and was married. And he sat in a meeting, and because his employer made a decision on healthcare, his wage gains over the past 5 years evaporated in a moment. And that's the system we are under. And I know people that work in both steel industry and the education industry that the unions talk about, they have given up actual wage gains day in, day out in order to offset the gains in healthcare, meaning that the union comes to you and says, yeah, I know it sucks that next year and the year after and the year after, you're not going to get any wage increases. I know cost of living goes up every year, but your check today is going to buy less 3 years from now. But that's because we have to take all we can to keep down the cost of healthcare. All the wage gain we normally would put in your pocket, we're now kicking back to the company so that they can pay for your healthcare. That's the scam.
And there is a reason why the Republican Party since the 1980s has been trying to move the retirement age up to towards 72. They want everybody to work till they're 72 and keep paying a monthly fee that is the equivalent of what used to be a mortgage back in the 80s and 90s.
I think it has more to do with the fact that Social Security is going to be insolvent if you don't.
I think that's
it's just like it's just a math problem. You've got we're
80s,
paying out too
doubled
much.
The Social Security withholdings tax because they saw this coming, and they also wanted to increase the retirement age. I'm a 67 person, whereas back then it was 62. Okay, so yeah, they squeeze money out of money where it circulates, and it taxes people that go to work for a living, and it subsidizes the financial industry, which is I guess what the lobbyists have adhered to, right?
Jim, I'm with you on the special interests and building a system that benefits them at the expense of other people. That's what we've done here. And it's also just government involvement in this whole process. Jim, I appreciate the call. We've just got to get to a break because we've got You Choose the News coming up. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A DeWalt Atomic 20-volt max cordless impact driver kit, valued at $160. Get it now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Bill, it's been such a wild week.
Yes.
We hadn't gotten to You Choose the News yesterday.
That's okay.
That was a crazy show yesterday.
Yeah,
I ended
that
up
was
just
fun.
kind of collapsing afterwards because we had Jack Phillips, Gabe Evans responding to the Kyle Clark debate, and then Dave Williams. Wow, man.
Yeah, it was really cool.
And we didn't even have a moment for You Choose the News.
No,
but
we
today
didn't.
we're going to make it a priority. So
Yes.
give them what they want.
Today, here are our questionable priorities. Yes, it is time for us to make decisions that might negatively impact our careers later in life, but YOLO. Am I right? All right, this is what we call You Choose the News. It's America's favorite fake radio news game show. I have spent moments, yesterday, scouring the internet to find stupid stories about us humans, giving them even more ridiculous headlines to play this fake radio news game show because nobody in charge is up at this hour. So when we are left unsupervised, this is what happens. But please, it's a secret. Do not share. All righty. Gentlemen, Blake Olson in the newsroom, Jeff Hunt in the master control room. Here are your headlines. Headline number 1, can we schedule an interview? Headline number 2, Duffman approved. Headline number 3, bandit migrant invasion. And headline number 4, sugar rush. Mr. Hunt, your choice.
Duffman approved.
Yes, Duffman approves of this one. We are traveling to the Netherlands. Recently, a Dutch museum said, oh, no, calm down, everybody. We have recovered the lost artwork. It was a piece of art known as All the Good Times We Spent Together, done by French artist Alexandra Lavette, that was accidentally thrown away recently by a mechanic who was there doing some improvements. But he was just trying to help out. He was doing his job. He's got to leave his work area clean. The work entitled All the Good Times We Spent Together are 2 crushed beer cans in the corner. Now, they do look like it is rubbish or trash, but they're actually meticulously painted with acrylics and have all sorts of modern symbolism and phrases and stuff like that in them. But the dude looked around and thought, ooh, 2 crushed cans there on the floor. Might as well make sure that I don't get yelled at by the boss. I'm going to clean it up and make sure we leave this job site perfectly clear.
I'm looking at a picture of it. This is the art I hate. This stuff, it's like the person that duct tapes a banana to a wall and sells it for like $1 million bucks. I'm looking at the picture. It's just 2 beer cans on the ground.
But he did actually paint the beer cans. There's other stuff involved there. So the thing for me is it's on the ground. I wish it would have been
beer cans on the ground.
I wish it would have been elevated off the ground so it made more sense as far as what. I think leaving
2
it
beer
there.
cans on a table?
Yeah, I think that at least tells you that it's not there just in the corner. And
this is not art. This is just crap.
I disagree. I'm not. I don't think it's on the level of something like a Picasso or a Monet, but I do believe it is art. I do. I believe this is his interpretation of it, and this is what he's doing.
Bill,
and so,
I will bring you 2 cans of beers tomorrow. How much would you like to buy my artwork for?
Well, are you gonna hand paint them with acrylic paints and put other stuff on them?
Sure.
Okay,
yes,
so let's
I
take
will.
a look at it. Okay, fine. Take a look at it.
I'm
not against impressionism. I'm not against some of that. It's but I'm different. So, all right. Our second choice this morning: can we schedule an interview? Bandit migrant invasion or sugar rush? Your choice, Mr. Olson.
Let's schedule the interview.
Yes, can we schedule an interview? But it might be a little late. Here we are going to go all the way to Lincolnshire and meet a 70-year-old woman, Teasy Hodson. She was wondering why, way back in 1976, her application for her dream job had gone unanswered. She wanted to be a motorcycle rider. She's a lifelong daredevil. She recently got a letter, though, from the Staines post office that said, ooh, yeah, sorry about this application. It got stuck behind a drawer. It's only 50 years late. Yes, they returned it to her. Then she's her entire life. She's like, why didn't they get back to me? I've got all the skill set for this motorcycle rider thing, and no one ever got back to me. She said she'd been wondering about it for years, decades. It was a constant mystery to her, but it wasn't. It didn't stop her. She went on to travel the world, taking on a variety of adventurous roles. She became a snake handler, a horse whisperer, even an acrobatic pilot, and a flying instructor. So the rejection or thought of rejection didn't actually slow her down. So that's kind of cool.
I bet that stuff happens a lot. I really do. I always wonder about that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. In fact, I'm sure like that's why that girl didn't want to go to the dance with you in high school.
Exactly.
I'm just teasing.
Didn't answer my love letter.
Exactly. That's mine. All right, Jeff Hunt, your final choice this morning, sir. Bandit migration invasion or sugar rush?
Sugar rush.
Yeah, sugar rush. Dortmund, Germany. The police there are watching out for someone that's addicted to sugar and speeding. They are going to try to arrest Cookie Monster. Yes, from Sesame Street. Why? Well, because recently Cookie Monster was spotted barreling down a highway going about 30 miles an hour over the speed limit. I know they do it kilometers in Germany, but just to make, this story makes sense, it's about 30 miles an hour over the speed limit. Now, it isn't the actual Cookie Monster. No, he hasn't left Sesame Street and is going out there breaking the law. It's actually a guy who's an enthusiast that tries to get his picture taken in ridiculous costumes when he does speeding. So they are familiar with him. They're looking for him. But yes, he drove around and they say he attempted several times to break the law in his Cookie Monster costume because we got it on camera before he actually did it. Yeah. Goals,
Good
people.
for
Goals.
him. Have some fun with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
That's it. That's the end of You Choose the News. Back to you, sir.
All right. Coming up in the 7 o'clock hour, we're going to get an update directly from Florida on how Hurricane Milton affected them down there. You're not going to want to miss it. The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Rocky Mountain.
It is 7 in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on this October 10th, Thursday, October 10th. Tomorrow, DJT in Colorado at the Gaylord in Aurora, and we were going to be broadcasting live from the event, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Our show will be out there at the Gaylord. So if you're coming out to the rally, swing by. Hang out with us. We might even put you on air. Who knows? We'll have to see. But give us or swing by, spend some time with us. Love to have you out there. It's going to be a really fun day. These rallies are fun. I still vividly remember Romney at Red Rocks. It was a lot of fun. It was a celebration of America, of our Constitution, of our values. We had the big R up on the rock there at Red Rocks. It was a ton of fun. So tomorrow will likely be a great time out at the Gaylord in Aurora with Donald Trump. The rally starts at 1 p.m. So be tuning in to us all morning as we give you updates live from the Donald Trump rally in Aurora, Colorado. Well, you've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show. I'm Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. We're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, Rory O'Neill, national correspondent with NBC Radio, is going to be joining us from Florida. Hurricane Milton hit yesterday, and boy, was it a doozy. 100-mile-an-hour winds ravaging Florida all night long, ripped off the roof of a stadium there. More than 3 million people are without power, and more than 100 rescue missions are underway this morning in Florida. To give us some better insight on that, let's turn it over to news and commentary with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Yeah, good morning. Ripped off of the Trop. They used to call it the Trop, where the Major League Baseball team plays, the Rays in Tampa. The roof, that is incredible. That shows you how strong it was. 50 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 81 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
We have flooding in places and to levels that I've never seen, and I've lived in this community my entire life.
City Manager Bill McDaniel from Plant City, Florida. Once again, search and rescue teams from Colorado are prepared to help the victims of Hurricane Milton, which hit West Florida last night. They flew there just before the storm made landfall. The task force shared an update on Facebook to say that all 80 members will wait in Fort Blanding until the storm moves out, and then they get their assignments to help. It was a powerful Category 3 storm, bringing life-threatening storm surge, heavy winds, and rain. A flash flood emergency continues for portions of west central Florida. The storm has left more than 3 million customers without power. It's been downgraded now to a Category 1. Several deaths are being reported in St. Lucie County, where tornadoes destroyed everything in its path.
St. Lucie County felt somewhere between 6 and 12 tornadoes that touched down. These tornadoes are strong enough to flip cars over, take trailers off their foundation. So I would safely say in St. Lucie County, not necessarily this, we're well over 100 homes that are damaged. And I'm not talking about just a broken window or a couple shingles. I'm talking about total lost houses. Life. They're listening for life. They're listening for anybody to call out and say, I'm in here. I need help.
Sheriff Keith Pearson, cities in Florida's East Coast are now reporting storm surge, flash flooding, and damaging winds. Governor Ron DeSantis says there were 19 confirmed tornado touchdowns, but that number is expected to rise. Michael Brennan from the National Hurricane Center.
We saw, catastrophic impacts in the Tampa Bay region across much of the West Coast down to Fort Myers in terms of storm surge. We've seen the wind damage across portions of the Tampa-St. Petersburg area. We saw substantial hurricane force wind gusts all through the I-4 corridor. And even still this morning, strong winds and storm surge ongoing along the East Coast.
Former President Trump in Pennsylvania last night said that we should all pray for the people in Florida. He'll be in Aurora tomorrow for the big event at the Gaylord, and Jeff and Billy will be there doing their show live tomorrow morning. Come on out. Trump is also planning to hold a rally at Madison Square Garden soon. And as I said, in Pennsylvania last night, Kamala Khan told The View a couple days ago she wouldn't really change anything that she did with President Biden. Good opportunity for Trump.
What about the nation-wrecking border invasion, 21 million people? 21 million people plus came into our nation, and among them are murderers, drug dealers, people from mental institutions, human traffickers, mostly in women. How about that? She wouldn't do that differently? She went from the best border in the world to the worst border in the world. We had We had a border that was the best in U.S. history.
Once again, tomorrow in Aurora at 1 o'clock at the Gaylord. 2 Colorado officers are recovering from a shootout that put a neighborhood in lockdown on Wednesday. One was struck by a bullet near his shoulder. The other was hit by glass and shrapnel. They were outside a Thornton house where people reported hearing gunfire inside. Police say a man came out and started shooting at police, who fired back. About 20 minutes later, a SWAT team entered and found the suspect dead. The Justice Department may ask a judge to break up Google's search engine from other parts of its company. Federal prosecutors accuse the tech giant of holding an illegal monopoly over online search. Tennis great Rafael Nadal is retiring. The 22-time Grand Slam champion released a video message this morning saying that he will retire from tennis at the end of the season. Incredible career. 46 that is in Parker, 47 in Arvada, and 50 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue Thursday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Another day of sunshine in the Front Range. Highs this afternoon in the lower to mid 80s. Lows tonight, low and mid 50s with light winds. Cold front comes in tomorrow. That will cool us off to the mid 70s, wrapping up the work week. Keeping it dry, though, with hazy sunshine. Lows Friday night, low 50s. Back in the low 80s Saturday, mid 70s Sunday. Weather brought to you by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. So, Bill, speaking of good health,
yes,
you are getting your health all in working order thanks to the people over at Balance Wellspace.
It is amazing. Yeah, I appreciate that, Jeff. I've been working with Balance Wellspace, and I want you to talk to the team that is making a huge change in my life. I'm doing things now I never thought were going to be possible, and it's because of integrative medicine. What does that mean? It means you can have a whole bunch of different treatments under one roof. Treatments you normally would be driving all over town for and spending multiple days at the doctor's office can be done and accomplished in one single appointment. Balance Wellspace is brand new to Denver, and they've got new offices, brand new, right in Lowry, across from Hangar 2, and plenty of parking plus shady trees. I was parking under a shady tree yesterday. We were in there doing some extra work on my left knee and my lower back, along with my right shoulder. Some stuff to make sure that the progress we've made doesn't go backwards. And they also wanted to reevaluate some of the progress. They were concerned about some stuff going on my shoulder. Here's the cool part. They're looking at all these different things because you can get chiropractic care, physical rehabilitation, neuropathic care, wave therapy, regenerative care, trigger point injections, and so much more, all in one appointment. They have some cutting edge technology that's got to be seen to believe, all non-invasive. And that's the important part. No cutting, no sewing, no taking something out of you, none of that. This is about using your body and their therapies to get you better. So talk to the team, talk to Dr. Dooley, Dr. Jess. They will evaluate where you are. They'll ask you what you're not doing and how that pain is affecting your life. They put together a custom pain plan just for you. Then they go to work. They start working on all the stuff that hurts, and they make it better. I can't believe the transformation that I've experienced. I have got 2 bottom vertebrae in my back are fusing together. We've been pulling those apart, and now I'm regrowing part of the disc right there. I'm regenerating it. As we're talking, I'm sitting here, and I'm regenerating the meniscus in my left knee that I tore about 9 years ago. And my left knee now, I'm doing bar trivia last night. I find myself leaning on my left knee. My left knee, my weak knee for years, is now my strong knee. That's the change they can make in your life as well. But until you talk to them, until you go to balancewellspace.com, they can't help. That's the first step you got to take. You've been taking steps in dealing with pain day after day after day. Take a step that's going to relieve that pain. Talk to my friends at Balance Wellspace, balancewellspace.com. Again, brand new offices there in Lowry, cutting edge technology and all non-invasive. What they're doing with regenerative medicine is crazy. I never would have guessed it. And that waveform therapy has destroyed a whole bunch of built-up scar tissue, and now my right shoulder feels better than it has in 20 years. They can make the same change in your life, but they can't unless you talk to them. balancewellspace.com. Check them out, balancewellspace.com. Let them make the same change in your life they've made in mine. Give them a call, and when you do, tell them you heard about it here on Jeff and Bill. Helps us out a lot, and we'd appreciate it.
Great to hear, Bill, that you're getting that care. All right. The hurricane down in Florida, Hurricane Milton, made landfall, slamming into Florida. I follow this couple, and they're both Harvard law graduates, and they do great legal analysis from kind of an entertaining perspective about evacuations. Here's their analysis on whether or not evacuation orders are legal.
Is it legal to ignore an evacuation order, like what this guy's doing during a hurricane?
All right, Dan, the people that are new, explain to them why you're deciding to stick out a Category 5, one of the worst hurricanes in Tampa history, out on a 20-foot sailboat in Tampa Harbor.
Well, the technical answer is no, because various laws, like this one in Florida, make it a crime to ignore an evacuation order. That said, these laws are very rarely enforced.
Why? Well, first of all, during a mandatory evacuation, emergency personnel like police have already left. No one's there to see if you stay or not and actually enforce this type of law.
Mandatory evacuations are less of a legal threat and more of a legal notice that you're on your own and no one's coming to help.
Which is why the Tampa mayor told residents who refuse to evacuate that they're going to die, and not that they're going to jail.
Rather than threaten people with jail time, local governments will try and use other methods to force people out, like shutting off the water and power to affected areas, or engaging in some psychological persuasion, like suggesting that anyone who refuses to evacuate write their name and social security number on their body so they can be identified after they die.
Overall, criminal charges are possible for those who stay because those laws do exist. But historically, they're not prosecuted very often. Frankly, being prosecuted is the least of your worries anyway if you are dead.
I love how that ends there, unless you're
dead. Right. Write your name and social security number on your body and try to. Would you stick around for Hurricane Bill, or would you get out?
Well, it depends on how large it is, but probably not. It just doesn't.
I think I'd get out too.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem reasonable. And the funny thing is, the guy that they were referencing in that in the video,
Lieutenant Dan.
Yeah,
he eventually left.
Yeah, and he has an interesting checkered past.
I bet he did. Dude, if you're living on a boat in a hurricane, you probably do.
Might not be his boat. That's the first thing.
Really?
Yes. He actually is involved in a case right now that might not be his boat. There's someone else claiming saying he's squatting on that thing. That's not his boat. Also, he is under other charges for sinking another boat in that same harbor last year. And wait. Hold on. Gets better. He has another court case that is a little bit older that was adjudicated, but he was accused of trying to set a woman on fire. So let's just say that he has an interesting checkered past. So the idea that this gentleman would make the choice of, I'm going to stay for the hurricane. Yeah, pretty much on brand. Pretty much on brand for everything he's been doing. So, yeah.
And they found him. They just posted 10 minutes ago. They found him sitting after the hurricanes passed through. He's sitting on a bench there smoking a joint. So there you go. Yeah, Lieutenant Dan was this character that refused to leave. He was on a boat in Tampa Bay, and they called him Lieutenant Dan after the movie Forrest Gump, where Lieutenant Dan rode out the hurricane. Well, joining us to provide some insight on what happened to Florida following the impact of Hurricane Milton, Rory O'Neill, national correspondent with NBC Radio. Rory, thanks so much for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Good morning. Quite a bumpy night.
Yeah, tell us about it. And where were you stationed down there?
Well, we had some of our colleagues had to be evacuated from their radio studios. So what we've done is we took everyone and moved us south to South Florida so that we would be guaranteed to have power and provide programming for those stations in the path of the storm. So I actually wrote it out here in South Florida where it was just fine. Hoping my house back in Orlando was doing okay, but apparently there's no power there. But so that means at least I can work more here.
Wow. So tell us what you saw, what your colleagues saw and experienced down there.
Well, what I think really surprised us with this storm were these tornadoes. Hurricanes spawn tornadoes all the time, and Florida frequently has tornadoes, but they're these EF0, EF1. They're these little ones that last 3, 5, 10 seconds and are quickly gone and maybe knock over a small tree or a mailbox. In this case, though, this thing looked like it came out of Oklahoma, a few of them. And we really haven't seen tornadoes of this category before. And sadly, they caused multiple fatalities in places like Port St. Lucie. Now, that is on the Atlantic coast, not the Gulf Coast. It's on the Atlantic coast, north of West Palm Beach. And it wasn't really in the zone for getting the worst of Hurricane Milton. So I think they may have been caught off guard by these tornadoes. And that's just one of what we believe are 27 tornadoes that touched down in Florida yesterday. Our phones were blowing up all day. 126 tornado warnings across the state. That was a record high number. I think about twice the number of tornado warnings in a single day in Florida than ever before.
Wow. Those numbers are incredible. Yeah, it does seem like you guys are right in the middle of Oklahoma or something with all those tornadoes happening. Now, can you talk about injuries, fatalities? What are you hearing regarding how people dealt with this?
Yeah, so it's a large area, obviously, that we're talking about, and it's so far 4 confirmed fatalities associated with those tornadoes. They're really just starting to scratch the surface now that the sun's up and try to figure out what happened in places in Sarasota County, in Bradenton, in Siesta Key, where the center of this storm made landfall around 8 o'clock last night. We've all seen video of Tropicana Field. That roof came off. Okay. But the real concern is what happened with storm surge in these coastal communities, who stayed behind, and if anyone is still there that needs rescuing.
Talking with Rory O'Neill, national correspondent for NBC Radio. We've seen some videos that are circulating on social media of the governor, Ron DeSantis, just looking exhausted down there. Is that the case? Was it just a clip? Can you give us a sense of his leadership in the state during this hurricane?
Well, look, it's the second one of these in 2 weeks, right? So we went through this with Helene when it brushed Florida's Gulf Coast in this same spot where Milton made landfall. And of course, Helene came across big time in the Big Bend area of Florida, wiping out places like Perry, Florida, and then into Georgia and the Carolinas. So, yeah, he's been at it for a while, that's for sure. He's also the father of 3 very young kids, like they're all under 7 or something. So that'll do it to you at the same time.
Now, Rory O'Neill joining us live here on the Jeff and Bill Show. He is a national correspondent with NBC Radio. Want to talk to you about, this may be a little personal, the home in Orlando. Florida has been hit relatively recently, 2 hurricanes back to back. Are you staying in Orlando? I mean, saying long term, does this type of weather event make you rethink, maybe this isn't where I need to keep my family?
It's guaranteed employment. I get to talk to you.
That sounds like a negative, honestly.
No, I mean, look, it's going to scare some people off. I'm in Orlando, which is dead smack in the middle of the state. So I'm not as concerned about the deadly storm surge. I think you probably heard this week that there's the old line that's really been used a lot. When you hear that there's wind coming, you hide from the wind. But when you hear there's water, you run. And that's the case why we saw so many people evacuate. They had gotten brushed with Helene. They saw that earlier this week, this hurricane, Milton, had winds upwards of 180 miles per hour, off the chart Cat 5 stuff, gusts over 200 miles an hour. That's the sort of stuff we associate with typhoons in the Pacific hitting Japan, not in the Gulf of Mexico. So bizarre to see this powerful storm. And when I told you 180, over 200, Cat 5, that's going to make any old Floridian, who I don't care how many storms he's been through, they're going to get out. And that's why we saw so many people evacuate ahead of this one.
Now, Rory, what is the feeling like with the average Floridian? It seems like you're taking a hit after hit after hit. How do you guys keep smiling? What is the feeling like rallying around the neighborhood and the community and helping your neighbors? Talk to us about that.
Well, we've had and this has been developing for a few years now, we have a homeowners insurance crisis. All these companies that you see advertising, especially on NFL days, they've all pulled out of Florida because they don't want to insure us. So our insurance premiums are absurd. A buddy of mine just sold his house before all that a couple months ago, but his insurance premium it's a nice house. It's not a mansion. It was a nice house though. But his insurance, the homeowner's insurance, was $14,000 a year.
Wow.
And, and he had every bell and whistle. He had every storm, hurricane window, did the doors, it was a brand new roof, the whole thing. Still, just the hurricane insurance was $14,000 a year. And if you're hit by a hurricane in Florida, you have what's called the hurricane deductible. That means the deductible isn't a fixed amount. It's instead a percentage value of your home. So if you bought a home 10 years ago for $200,000, now it's probably worth $500,000. Now you suddenly have a $15,000, $20,000 deductible on that $14,000 premium you're paying.
That is getting crazy. And I think it becomes a disincentive for people to move and or stay in Florida, that it becomes more and more difficult to bring young families there.
It makes you rethink that beachfront living and things like that. And that really is a problem here because those companies are leaving. The state instead is insuring more and more of those properties. And, this was not the big one as it turned out, but had it been, you could bankrupt the state by trying to have them make all these hurricane claims paid out.
Ooh. Now, also, Rory, just before we let you go, I want to talk a little bit about some of the problems with evacuating large groups of people. And you've got real world experience with this. And I just want to know your experience being the NBC national correspondent with NBC Radio, that how difficult it is to evacuate these large groups of people simply because of our roadways. The idea of, all right, guys, everybody out. We all line up on the road and then sit there in 2-mile-an-hour traffic for hours. Not necessarily the safest thing, not the quickest way to evacuate. Can you talk to us just about the difficulty of getting so many people out of the path of the storm and what that's been like there in Florida? We've got I-25, 225 problems here as far as traffic, but we can't imagine the traffic involved with that type of an evacuation.
Well, the good thing when it comes to a storm like this, where it was hitting in the Tampa Bay region, you could head north, you could head south and over toward Miami, or you could head east toward Orlando. So at least there were 3 ways to go. When these things come in to threaten Miami, there's only one way to go, like you're going up. And so that becomes a much more okay, I guess it could go west. But even then, that's still only 2 ways at best. And that's one of the fortunate things here. The real issue, too, is the people who don't evacuate or can't evacuate, either for medical reasons, which is very common. Now, the county will give you free transportation. You register with the county and you have a medical issue and you're bedridden or something, the county will get you to a shelter for free in advance. But it's going to take a couple of days, and people don't want to do that. The other issue is your pet. You've got 2 huskies, and the state says, well, here's a shelter, but the dogs have to be in crates or you can't bring them. Well, a husky in a crate isn't going to happen. So, and so that's so these homeowners say, I can't leave. I got the dogs. So there are these things that prevent people from evacuating that are more important, or the money issue that people say, look, where am I going to go? I want to go to a hotel, but I can't afford it.
Yeah, I've had huskies. Huskies don't do well in crates. Hey, Rory O'Neill, national correspondent for NBC Radio. We appreciate your time with us today on the Jeff and Bill Show. We may check in with you later in the week or next week to talk about the rebuild and what's going on to recover.
Hope your house is okay. Thanks for taking time to be with us, Rory.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Wow, it is amazing seeing the images, seeing the impact, seeing that video of the stadium and its roof ripped off and all that. Goodness.
And this is the other part, is the fact that Rory's there. Yeah, he's doing his job, but he's like, no, this is Florida.
Yeah,
this is what we do.
Well, and I was thinking about this. Is there anywhere in the country that doesn't have really bad weather issues from time to time? I mean, here in Colorado, we get slapped with these blizzards that knock us out for like 5 days.
Yeah. The thing is, I think the blizzards here are less frequent than you have the flooding and the hurricanes, because there is a hurricane season. We don't have a blizzard season. So I think the infrequency.
Winter?
Well, I know, but it isn't. But it's not like, hey, guys, it's going to be a blizzard and we're expecting blizzards for the next 6 weeks. We don't have that.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying by that. So here, I think it's better because of the infrequency of the disasters versus the idea of there in Florida, you got to plan for something every 12 months. I'm not saying it's going to hit you every 12 months,
right?
But you're expecting the possibility of every 12 months, which is a bit different than here.
Let's go to California. You got earthquakes,
you got
wildfires, you got mudslides.
Liberals.
You go You said it.
I know.
You go to the northern parts, you get just really cold. I mean, miserable winters.
Yeah.
In Wisconsin and Minnesota, Michigan, those types of things.
Yeah. You get through like Oregon and Washington, you just get rain. There isn't necessarily a lot there, etc.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, it's just wet.
Rain. The Midwest,
no
you
sun.
get the hurricanes. The eastern part or Midwest, you get the hurricanes. You get the tornadoes.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're mixing them all together because they had how many tornadoes?
I know.
26 or something like that?
126 tornado warnings. That's crazy. That's nuts. And when Roy was talking about the idea that the wind level was getting to typhoon level, that is even more ridiculous. And you can see why all the damage is. And I'm still shocked by the people that are like, no, I'm going to stay behind. But I get it if you're like, you can't move and you don't want your pets. Those pets, I can see that. I can see someone staying behind because they can't move their pets. I've got some people in some of my reptile groups that are keepers, and they talked about what they have to do to move their pets and how they were, loading up the back of the car with all the lizards
we have
and snakes
at
and stuff.
some point 50 animals.
Yeah.
Sometimes
How
on
do
our
you
ranch.
move those? And you can't necessarily say, well, I got to leave these few behind.
Oh, the chickens.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
You guys, good luck to you. You'll be okay. They are hardy animals.
Yeah, they are.
They find a way to keep it going. But yeah, and then in the South, you have the droughts in the United States. So I don't know if there's anywhere that's totally impervious to really bad weather. Sometimes.
Question for you. Now, this is just you and me talking. Listeners obviously aren't here at this point. Now, just real talk, 100%. Would you consider moving your family to Florida, knowing the storms? And I'm not saying interior Orlando. I'm talking about on the edge.
On the edge, yeah.
So you're going on the edge. Good job, opportunities for the kids and the family, but you know that you're going to have to deal with these storms. And as we talked to Rory, the house insurance prices are going to be ridiculous. Do you make the move?
If I was a pot lobbyist now, like Chris Holbert is, I'd go to Florida. Man, I'm so disappointed in that guy.
Yeah.
He and I used to fight over the pot stuff, and he was the Republican leader in the Senate, and now he's a freaking pot lobbyist in Florida. He's trying to turn Florida into pot central.
Checks are really big.
I know. We talked a little bit about moving after this last election, just because Colorado's becoming such a crazy state.
Yeah.
And if you want to work in the conservative movement, well, those opportunities are shrinking in this state. So we looked at maybe Oklahoma, Florida, but I don't know, man.
Yeah, my cousin's going to Oklahoma, and he had talked, and he kind of is more of a beach guy than I am.
Yeah.
And he talked about the idea of, going to either coast is silly because, again, storms and also housing insurance prices. He said it just was ridiculous. And he said the housing costs in Oklahoma were much better. And he said that the lifestyle was somewhat similar. Said weather's a little different. He's going to miss mountains. They've got, what they call mountains. And he's like, it's ridiculous and stupid. They're just big hills, but he likes it. But he said it was difficult to make the choice based on leaving just the Colorado lifestyle. He said, politics aside, it's just the mountains being so close, all the days of sunshine, not having horrible, weather events happening all the time. Calendar, and just being enjoyable. And that most of the people in Colorado are just cool people, or just nice to be around.
Yep.
He said, that's a tough move for him, but he's moving there because of the situation.
And then I was offered a job to yell at the crazy Democrats.
Oh yeah,
in the
where?
State here.
Oh yeah, nice.
Right, and
that's right.
This is a great place to do that.
Yeah,
if you're gonna
came back. Yes,
if you're gonna have to take on lunatic liberals and be a conservative talk host, well, Colorado's a good place to be right now.
Yes, it is.
All right, look, if you're losing your hair, you need a simple solution that works. You want the best modern technology with top-rated physicians. Guys, something that's guaranteed to work. You need Dr. Tanya Pauls and her team at Advanced Hair. They've completely redefined hair restoration, from the experience itself to their unmatched results. Receding hairline, bald spots, thinning hair. Address them all with Advanced Hair's simple one-day treatment in a calm, relaxed environment with the most experienced professionals. Advanced Hair has performed tens of thousands of these breakthrough treatments. And get this, your own natural hair begins to regrow the very next day. No one in Denver can offer anything like the Advanced FUE found at Advanced Hair, and I highly recommend their team. It all starts with your free consultation. Call 720-459-HAIR. If you qualify, you also get $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Refine your hairline with the team that's redefined hair restoration. 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. 720-459-HAIR. advancedhair.com. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show. You're listening to
Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Wyo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
Eric Trump posting to X that he, his dad, President Donald Trump, and the family are honored to have 275 incredible linemen from FPL as they got ready to respond to the aftermath of Hurricane Milton. Eric, who is the executive vice president of the Trump Organization, posted the video just hours before Milton made landfall in Florida on Wednesday. Eric added, quote, "You are amazing, and the Trump family and the entire state of Florida appreciates you. Enjoy the rooms. They are the best in Florida, and be safe." The resort has 643 total guest rooms with room rates starting at about $300 a night. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis making sure the state was as prepared as possible, staging more than 50,000 linemen before Milton hit to help with the recovery, which he said was the largest staging of utility workers in U.S. history. Amazon is trying to achieve greater efficiency and has developed new systems to shave seconds off each package delivery and help customers make faster buying choices. The company announced on Wednesday that it has created spotlights within its trucks to guide delivery people to packages for each stop along a route. The technology, which Amazon is calling vision-assisted package retrieval, works by shining a green light on packages so the deliverer does not have to waste precious seconds reading labels. Amazon said it would equip 1,000 active delivery trucks with the Spotlight tech early next year.
That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Wyo, Salem News Channel.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A DeWalt Atomic 20-volt max cordless impact driver kit, valued at $160. Get it now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show, updating you all on Hurricane Milton and the impact it had in Florida. We just heard from Rory O'Neill, who's in Florida, national correspondent with NBC Radio, giving us an update on there. How do you think Ron DeSantis is handling this? And do you think it's setting him up to become president of the United States? Do you think he's handling it well? Because the election's November 5th. November 6th, the 2028 presidential election will begin. No matter who wins, it'll all start over the next day as potential candidates build their teams and get ready. And do you think that Ron DeSantis, especially in his handling of these crises, like Hurricane Milton, makes him more presidential? So I'll tell you one thing that I saw that I liked. Well, two things. First, there was a video circulating on conservative X in those circles about how exhausted he is, right? You could just see it, that it's weighing on him. So it comes across as a guy that really cares, right? He's not out sitting on a beach in Delaware. I have a phone. He really cares about the people that he's serving. You can see it weighing on him. But two, do you see the dog that was tied up?
No. Oh, that hurt.
Somebody leaving town tied up a dog on the side of the highway and just left.
Oh, that's awful.
And police there saw the dog and rescued it. And Ron DeSantis was asked about it, and he dropped the hammer.
Good for
He's
him.
like, you're going to treat animals like this, we will arrest you.
Good.
And seriously punish you for it.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's one thing to like let an animal go, right? Like if there's a fire raging towards your house, you just open the paddocks for the horses and you slap them in the butt and you're like, run.
Yeah.
You know, that's
I
one
can't get
thing.
you out of here. Yeah.
It's another thing to tie an animal up as a storm comes.
Yeah. And here's the problem that makes it different is you're not letting the animal fend or care for itself, even though it's a difficult choice. But here you're restricting the animal's ability to save itself and care for itself.
Yes.
It can't go find food. It can't get away from anything. It is stuck. And that's why that goes to another level of just pure animal cruelty. That's awful. That's someone that deserves. I mean, I've been punched in the face recently. That's someone that needs to be punched in the face.
So, I mean, Ron responding to that, Bill, what would you do with your snakes if you had to evacuate? Would you just toss them into a car and be like, we're going together? And would they get along, or do you have to keep them separate?
This is the thing is, and this is because we have people that are evacuating. You go old school with them, and a lot of people do. Oh, I've got tubs and this, that. No. You know what you do? You put them each in an individual pillowcase. That's what you do. That's the easiest way to transport them.
Really?
You drop it and you tie a knot on the top because it's a small area.
It's breathable.
Yep, it's breathable. It can regulate itself based on temperature, and the snake can't see anything around it that seems like a threat. So they're fairly calm inside of it. Now, again, venomous snakes and things that are really they can be a little bit cranky, but most snakes will be super, super calm inside of a pillowcase. And so you just put them in there. Yeah. So you just do that, and then you stack the enclosures and you bring, the water bowls. But then when you stop, you can put them into one of the enclosures, not all together, and then allow them water. Water is the thing that snakes that'll hurt snakes the most first. They can go months without food. I've had a snake that has gone 6 months without eating, without any negative effects. But water, dehydration is a serious, serious issue. That's the thing that for keepers you got to stay on top of. So if you're traveling, that's where some of the keepers that I was talking to out of Florida, they're going to go live with family for a while, and they were talking about how often they're going to stop. And it's not like a daily thing like getting dogs water, but if you stop for overnight, you do have to make sure the snakes get into an enclosure and get access to water. That's about it. They're super easy to take care of. In fact, going on vacation, easiest thing in the world. Larger water bowl, make sure the water bowl is full, feed the snake before you go. You can go for weeks. Snake's fine. As long as the lights are on a timer and you have a thermostat.
Yeah, we hire ranch hands to come help because it's daily, right? You got to feed the goats and the chickens and the cats and dogs.
Yeah,
and
I knew someone that was evacuating. Oh gosh, let me think. What does Crystal have? 23 snakes is what she was evacuating in the last 48 hours. Yeah, 23.
Oh, down in Florida?
Yeah, in Florida. She's in Florida. Yeah, 23 is what she was evacuating. Yeah. She's got 23 snakes, and that's what she was evacuating. In addition to frogs and other lizards.
Think through your hobbies. What could happen in a worst case scenario?
Yeah.
23 snakes and pillowcases.
Oh, yeah. And the amount, that's the other thing is the amount. There is someone that I know that's in a different part of Florida, but he actually has an entire warehouse. He's a huge level breeder, but he has an entire warehouse that is storm proofed because he goes, if something hits, he goes, I can't move all these snakes. There's nothing that can happen there. So, yeah. And in fact, he had posted on on social media the day before the storm hit. So now I guess it would be Tuesday or Monday. He was posting on all the extra generators that he has. He had a dozen generators in his shop. And he's like, listen, if my friends need them, if you need this, etc., let me know. I'll help you out. I can make sure you've got power, at least in the short term, which is kind of cool. Yeah.
Text message from 1712. I like Ron DeSantis very much, but we'll be keeping an eye on J.D. Vance. I think he has extreme potential. And Jeff, thank you for bringing up about that poor little dog. Hard to believe anybody would do such an insane thing.
Yeah, that is hard. And DeSantis is an interesting play because if he shows the right leadership and doesn't show up in his white rain boots, this is a positive for him. This can be that leadership moment that he comes out of and can wash away a lot of, and I pun intended, a lot of the other leftover stuff that has been hurting his campaign. So he's got a moment because, as Jeff and I were talking about, you are going to need a new Republican candidate in the next election cycle because Donald Trump can't run again. He wins, he's got 4 years. If he doesn't win, he got 4 years to run again. So regardless, you do need another candidate. And does this storm give Ron DeSantis the opportunity to get back into the pole position?
Look, and being a U.S. senator is great, but that's legislative experience, and that matters. That's important. But the president is the chief executive. And the only other job that's close to that is not the vice president's job.
No.
It's the governor of a state.
Yeah. And I think that our electorate has bent to liking governors more than liking senators because of exactly what you outlined, because the idea that they've had to lead what would be a microcosm of the nation. It gives more of that. And I think that's why Polis still has his eyes on 1600 Pennsylvania because of that experience. And I think that's why he's in the governor's mansion after he was in Congress.
He's going to run into a real hard challenge of just being really boring.
Yeah, that is it.
He's not a good communicator.
And he seems, again, I've only talked to him briefly a couple of times. I mean, nothing big, just reporter stuff. He seems to have a charisma problem a bit. There isn't that overwhelming. I mean, Donald Trump has buckets of charisma. Barack Obama and Clinton, buckets of charisma. The Bushes had their own version of charisma. Mitt Romney struggled with charisma. Struggled.
Mittens?
Mittens.
Yes.
There was a certain thing there.
Yeah,
He struggled with it.
and John McCain and
yeah,
Bob Dole.
Yeah. And I think early on, Biden did have charisma, but I think by the time he ran for president, it was gone. He landed that job for something completely different. And there have been a number of other candidates. You had, and I think Ted Cruz struggles with the charisma thing. I think there are a couple of other Democrats that Chuck Schumer. I can't imagine why he continues to get elected. Chuck Schumer seems like a guy that should be running some old bookstore.
No,
than
he should be running a mob. I'll tell you exactly how he gets elected. Okay. Anybody that challenges that seat ends up with cement shoes.
Okay, that's fair enough. I can see that. I can see him playing the kindly doddering old man, and then kind of like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, and then in the back room going, give him the necktie.
Right. Another text message 8422. It's really impressive how DeSantis is handling the storm. He's showing true leadership. I don't understand this, though. Also, the way he dealt with Kamala's accusations was very professional and to the point.
That was the accusation about him refusing her phone call. And he did a very good job with that.
He just said, I talked to her boss or something.
Yeah, and it's just the idea of that wasn't the most important thing at the time. It's for me to talk to the vice president or talk to the candidate. There were other things. Yeah, there were other things that were rising up. And I was surprised that Kamala's campaign tried to make that into something. That was something I'm like, that's nothing but a mouse fart. That doesn't matter at all. I mean, you can't move anything at all. You're the vice president. You don't have really any legislative power. You have no fundamental executive power. There is a heck of a lot you can do. And I applaud the DeSantis campaign for understanding that phone call for what it was. That was a political phone call. That was I can do president stuff too. No. If he's refusing a Biden phone call, that's different because that's the dude that can make the stuff happen. You're refusing a vice presidential phone call? Who cares? And I'm surprised that the Kamala campaign tried to make a big deal about it. And good on the DeSantis house to say, no, that's a bunch of crap. This is silly. That is not a priority that we need to have at this point to see what the vice president thinks about the situation.
You know who I think would be a fantastic governor for Colorado? Ooh. And I'm going to keep saying this until he finally decides to run. Dan Caplis.
Oh, yeah.
Gosh, Dan would get it done for a few reasons. One, Dan has great values. He's pro-life, pro-America, pro-family. He gets it, strong in his faith, That matters, especially if you need to hire somebody in an injury case, because that's going to send a message to everybody involved in the case that you're serious about principles and values. This isn't about just getting money. This is about somebody who really cares for people and has solid values. He's the son of a police officer. He's a former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. But more than that, he's a real winner, which is why I think he'd make a great governor as well. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Kaplis Law is so trusted that he's the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Kaplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases, and you're probably thinking to yourself, well, if I was ever hurt, I probably could never afford him. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need Dan's help, give him a call at 303-770-5551 or hit dankapleslaw.com. Look, even if you're not hurt right now, why not put his phone number in your phone so if an accident happens and you are hurt, you can quickly get a hold of Dan Kaplis Law. 303-770-5551 or dankapleslaw.com. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A DeWalt Atomic 20-volt max cordless impact driver kit, valued at $160. Get it now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show.
We got to admit, we can't let that go. That John Caldera talking over Mariah Carey's Fantasy. Come on, that's a special gift at 7:54 in the morning. That is a special gift. When are you ever going to hear John Caldera over the top of Mariah Carey?
Nobody's fantasy.
No, not at all. And again, and his delivery is, "Hi, this is John Caldera." It's like behind him. I love that. I love the juxtaposition. It's fantastic.
Oh, we love you, John.
Oh, John is fantastic. Such a good guy and a great thinker.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, Will Trackman, General Counsel for Mountain States Legal Foundation, fresh from a battle at the U.S. Supreme Court over ghost gun issues. And whether or not I think it's the ATF, is reading into law things that aren't there, you know?
You know what I want to know, though, personally, as a side note, is I'm curious that when you're there and you get to argue in front of the Supreme Court, is there do you have a prep area they give you? Is there like bathrooms and stuff? And the reason I'm asking is because I want to know if there are like coasters or Supreme Court ashtrays or towels, because if there are, the next time he shows up, he has to bring us some.
I would like to have some.
Just saying.
It's like when you fly on Air Force One and you come back with like decks of cards from
yes, exactly,
the White House on it.
I have an Air Force One hat that I will not admit how it was taken. Yes.
Do you want to admit which administration it comes from?
Yeah, Bush administration.
1 or 2 or 3?
2.
2.
Yeah.
Okay, so is George H.W.
Yeah,
Bush.
H.W. Yeah. Someone was able to.
Oh no,
abscond
George
with
W. Bush.
George W. Yeah. So it's the younger Bush. Yeah. Someone was able to abscond with an Air Force One hat for me from that administration, and I appreciate it every day.
Those are cool. You got to take advantage of those
Absolutely.
moments. So, how did the Supreme Court case go yesterday? And I've been reading about ghost guns, and I'm a little torn on it. Obviously, you have serial numbers, and you want to track bad guys with guns, but I kind of like the idea of living in a country that you can build a gun in your basement. That's what we did in the Revolutionary War. So what's wrong with that?
Yeah,
we're going to talk
like
to Will
butter.
Trackman. Right. We're going to talk to Will in just a second. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
8 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Billy Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You're waking up and going to work in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, but most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, Will Trackman, General Counsel for Mountain States Legal Foundation, is going to be joining us fresh off of a U.S. Supreme Court battle royale that took place yesterday, or 2 days ago. Garland v. Vanderstook.
Yeah, that's right.
Vanderstock. This is the ghost gun ban. And ATF's interpretation of rules, and is it a reach, all that. And I'd love to have this conversation. Do you think that people in America should be able to build ghost guns? And that's not necessarily what the U.S. Supreme Court case is about, but there's a larger, broader issue there. And I'm a little torn on this because bad guys running around with guns, and I'd like to know how they got it, right? But at the same time, those patriots in the Revolutionary War did not have registration numbers on their guns going back to England to track them or anything like that. So I kind of like the idea of a free and independent people being able to build a gun in their basement if they want to. But I'd love to hear from you. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. Let's check in first on news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy.
Blake,
50.
By the way, what do you think of my jersey?
Oh, man. I'm having a hard time looking at that thing. I really am.
Prime, man?
Come on. Well, I mean, this goes back. I used to cover him when I was in Dallas, and I covered the Cowboys. So I would see Prime a lot.
Yeah.
So Dion is his name, to me. And he's unbelievable athlete, maybe one of the greatest athletes of all time, but it's just like 50-50 with me. He just contradicts a lot of things that he talks about and does. He just drives me up the wall, and that jersey is ridiculous. Football is the ultimate team sport. I don't need to see Prime's name on the front of it.
I wore a CSU jersey. You didn't like that. I wore a CU Prime jersey. You are a jersey diva, Blake.
Look, the greatest CSU coach of all time, Sonny Lubick. I don't think CSU fans would be running around with the Sonny jersey on, with Sonny on the front and a number.
I got to tell this. When Jeff walked in on it this morning and said Prime across the jersey, I thought it was Logan Paul's energy drink. That's what I thought.
I get it.
Speaking of the health conversation we had, my kids tried that for a little bit. I think it's just pure sugar. It's it's horrible. 99% sugar and a drop of water.
Oh yeah, it's awful. And today is not the day to look at it, but the economic world, looking at the life cycle of Prime energy drink,
that thing is done.
Fascinating. Yeah,
nobody drinks it anymore.
That's
crazy, right?
It is the fastest growth and fastest fall of a newly introduced product in probably the last 40 or 50 years. Not like number one, but it's got to be in the top 10 if you look at the product life cycle, how quickly it was adopted.
Now, Will, did your kids get into Prime?
So my son actually wrote an article for his 6th grade school newspaper about the dangers of Prime.
Oh, that's great.
That's great.
Oh,
that is awesome.
True story. And I thought originally people were talking about maybe it had caffeine, but I don't even know if it was the caffeine, it was the sugar, really. And I mean, the article was well read, so thank you to my son Turner for shining a light on that controversy.
Make America healthy again, coming from Turner Trackman.
Turner knew early on how bad that was.
It was co-written with RFK Jr. I really appreciate it.
RFK was Jr. was just mad they didn't add extra whale heads. That's the thing. He's like, we got to go more natural here.
Okay, I feel like such a horrible parent. I used to take my son. What was that, about a year ago? And Dad, we got to go get a 6-pack of Prime. And then I found out what was in that stuff. And thankfully he's turned
Yeah, I mean,
180 on it.
we got it for the kids because
Yeah,
whatever,
we did.
they're all
Yeah.
talking about it. It's in
Right.
the store. It can be that bad, and then
Yeah.
it's like our kids like self-selected out of it.
Right, exactly.
I don't think
funny.
I want to drink this anymore.
It's like how most adults realize at some point or another that Chef Boyardee is a liar. That's not food. That's not food at all.
Not really meatballs, huh?
Yeah, not even close.
All right, guys. I can't wait to talk more about Prime. 52 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 84 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
I'm born and raised in Florida. We actually lived in Fort Lauderdale when Andrew hit, and we evacuated to Sarasota. So now it feels like, here we are almost 30 years later, just doing the opposite.
We just barely got cleaned up from Hurricane Helene, literally 2 days before.
To be honest, my insides right now are shaking. I feel like crying.
Hurricane Milton is still a Category 1 storm as it leaves Florida and heads into the Atlantic. Milton made landfall last night as a powerful Category 3 hurricane just south of Sarasota. Several deaths are being reported in St. Lucie County, where a tornado destroyed everything in its path. Search and rescue teams are still going through the rubble, including a task force from Colorado. 80 members are there. Rory O'Neill from NBC Radio, he lives in Orlando, but he's in South Florida this morning. He joined Jeff and Bill last hour. Tornadoes, one of the big stories.
In this case, though, this thing looked like it came out of Oklahoma, a few of them. And we really haven't seen tornadoes of this category before. And sadly, they caused multiple fatalities in places like Port St. Lucie. Now, that is on the Atlantic coast, not the Gulf Coast. It's on the Atlantic coast, north of West Palm Beach. And it wasn't really in the zone for getting the worst of Hurricane Milton. So I think they may have been caught off guard by these tornadoes. And that's just one of what we believe are 27 tornadoes that touched down in Florida yesterday. Our phones were blowing up all day. 126 tornado warnings across the state. That was a record high number. I think about twice the number of tornado warnings in a single day in Florida than ever before.
Milton is creating dangerous conditions along Florida's east coast. The director of the National Hurricane Center says roads remain flooded, trees and power lines down, and electricity cut off to millions of customers. Almost as many lives can be lost in the wake of a hurricane as they are during the height of the storm. 2 Thornton police officers are injured and a suspect is dead following a neighborhood shooting Wednesday morning. Thornton Interim Police Chief Greg Reeves revealed a man came out of a home with a rifle and began firing at officers.
Our officers are exposed to difficult situations daily. Today, we were far too close to losing one of our own officers.
Officers were called after reports of popping sounds inside a home. They arrived and surrounded the location before the exchange began. 2 officers were injured by either gunfire or shrapnel and are in stable condition. Officials believe that the suspect was hit by returning fire and fled into the home, where he was later confirmed dead. One neighbor, Missy Kramer, says the home where the shooting happened was right across from her house.
It's surreal. It's a quiet neighborhood. It's unbelievable. I just couldn't believe that it was happening in my neighborhood. I couldn't.
Former President Trump in Pennsylvania last night, he said we should all pray for the people in Florida. He'll be in Aurora tomorrow for the big event at the Gaylord, and Jeff and Billy will be there doing their show live. Come on out and say hello. Trump is also planning to hold a rally at Madison Square Garden soon.
It hasn't been done in many decades, but we're going to make, how could New York be run worse than it is, right? With all the problem, everything is corrupt in New York, and we're going to make a play, and let's see. I mean, I think that, the migrants have taken over Madison Avenue. They've taken over Fifth Avenue. They've taken over the parks. The kids can't play Little League. It sounds like a trivial thing, It's a big deal when you have a son that's a Little League player and he can't play. So we're going to go Madison Square Garden. We went to the Coliseum, Nassau Coliseum. We could have filled up the Nassau Coliseum 3 times. It was incredible. We left there a few weeks ago. It was incredible. So we're doing Madison Square.
Trump made a couple of stops in Pennsylvania on Wednesday. Today, former President Obama will pay a visit and try to help Kamala Khan. The great Rafael Nadal is retiring after 22 Grand Slam titles in tennis. He's 38 years old and will make his final appearance for Spain next month at the Davis Cup. 50 in Glendale, 48 in Golden, 52 in Denver. Jeff and Bill, Jeff, Mr. Prime, continues on
Prime
Thursday.
time,
Prime time. I don't know what that is. That's what he used to say. That's what he used to say.
I love that he puts on a cowboy hat, talks about Jesus, and the libs can't do anything about it.
I love that. But okay, we'll talk later. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Another day of sunshine in the Front Range. Highs this afternoon in the lower to mid 80s. Lows tonight low and mid 50s with light winds. Cold front comes in tomorrow. That will cool us off to the mid 70s. Wrapping up the work week. Keeping it dry though with hazy sunshine. Lows Friday night low 50s. Back in the low 80s Saturday. Mid 70s Sunday. Weather brought to you by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Rocky Mountain Bargain.
So those that saunter on up to a courtroom and make sure that all of our lives are a little freer. And that's what Mountain States Legal Foundation does. No one better than Will Trackman, General Counsel for Mountain States Legal Foundation, fresh off a plane from Washington, D.C. before the U.S. Supreme Court, arguing a big case there. Will, give our folks some insight here.
Yeah, great to be here, Jeff. So Vanderstock, this is a case where our client is actually the respondent. The person who brought the case to the Supreme Court is Attorney General Merrick Garland, because we've already won the case at the trial court level and the appellate court level. So they had to seek review by the U.S. Supreme Court. And for 250 years, Americans have had the right to build their firearms at home. You don't have to be a federally licensed firearms dealer in order to do that. You can just build the firearm. You don't need all the background checks that have to go through a commercial purchase. And so for 50 years after the Gun Control Act was passed in 1968, the ATF agreed that that's perfectly legal. You can buy a kit full of parts and build your own firearm at home. And there's nothing wrong with that. In 2022, the Biden-Harris administration decided to change course, and the ATF reinterpreted its own authority to define what a firearm is. And so the ATF defined a firearm to include parts kits like these. Our client, Jennifer Vanderstock, former law enforcement, very good citizen, very patriotic, all of a sudden would become a criminal based on this regulation. So this is not just, a typical ban. This is a criminal statute that would put someone who has one of these parts kits in jail for something that was perfectly legal for 50 years.
And this wasn't passed as a law through Congress. This was just a rule interpretation by the Biden administration via the ATF.
That's right. In fact, we were able to marshal many of the briefs that the ATF had filed before the Biden-Harris administration, saying just because you can build something from a parts kit doesn't make it the thing itself. And Justice Alito, during oral argument, really did a good job by having in one hand a pen and another hand a notepad and saying, is this a grocery list? Just because I can create something from these two things, does that make it the thing itself that the ATF can regulate? So here you really do have a unilateral reinterpretation of authority by a federal executive branch agency because Biden-Harris had the stroke of a pen to do that.
No, the response, I think, was, well, if you buy an omelet kit, aren't you building omelets? Isn't that the purpose of the kit? What's your response to that?
I didn't think that was a very good example. So Justice Alito did a very good job saying if I have some eggs and some ham and some onions and some peppers, is that a Western omelet, right? Because all I'm doing is putting things on the counter that the ingredients. And Justice Barrett, although somewhat concerningly, she asked this question: what if it's HelloFresh, which is one of these, I guess, home delivery services where they give you all the things in a bag?
Only people in DC would know that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very first world type question. And so I don't think that changes the fact that if you put all those things from the bag on the counter, that it does become a Western omelet, even if it's in a package altogether. I think once you cook it, it's a Western omelet. Once you build it, it may be different. But here, this is a parts kit. It takes significant amount of time and skill to do it. Even the ATF's expert got it wrong a bunch of times in their affidavit. They admit they couldn't get it right. It took them a lot of time and effort.
Wait, the government experts regulating guns don't know what they're doing? Shocking.
Yeah, well, I mean, the point is, it's not the type of thing that if you were a hardened criminal, you would order a parts kit online and then get out your milling machine and decide, okay, now's the time to make a homemade firearm so that I can use it in a crime. The government likes to use the word.
But you could.
So you could, and if you did, that would be totally illegal. But the other
crime would be illegal.
Yeah, of course.
Not the making of the gun.
I mean, our point on the merits is, look, a criminal is much more likely to steal a gun or have an illegally trafficked gun than spend the time to build a gun or use a gun that's homemade, because they're not as reliable as a commercial gun. And so if they really wanted to use a gun in a crime, they would use one that's commercially manufactured. And the left uses the phrase ghost gun, which is a very spooky term. And we're in October. I understand that they're trying to scare people, but these are just homemade firearms.
Sometimes it is just the gun, right? As Tim Wall said.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So these are not ghost guns in the sense that they're spooky, haunting guns. They're homemade firearms that we've had the right to build for 250 years.
Talking with Will Trackman, he's general counsel for Mountain States Legal Foundation on a Supreme Court case yesterday that has to do with ghost guns. I'm just going to say ghost guns because it's generally how it's understood in the media. But look, couldn't Congress just write a law saying we don't like the fact that you can build a ghost gun? We want the ATF to be able to regulate this, so go do it.
Absolutely. So Congress has passed laws regulating firearms, and the ATF has jurisdiction to regulate firearms. What the ATF ought not be able to do is define what a firearm is to include non-firearms, because if they can define anything they want to be a firearm, that expands their regulatory power. It means that they've now unilaterally decided that something that wasn't in their scope now is, without Congress weighing in, without Congress saying, we'd like to expand your authority. It's one thing for Congress to delegate authority to executive branch agencies. I'm not a big fan of that just generally, but I admit that it happens. Here, the ATF didn't do anything other than reinterpret an old 1968 statute saying, oh, I guess we have more authority than we thought we did. And Justice Kagan, who's on the left, during oral argument said, how many times are we going to do this? We had the CDC eviction moratorium, the OSHA vaccine mandate. Now we've got this. And so it is interesting that the Biden-Harris administration keeps picking up old statutes that were passed generations ago and saying, oh, we've got a lot more authority than we thought we did.
Power. All right. So how does Loper Bright fit into this then?
Loper Bright is good for us. So just a refresher, Loper Bright reversed what they called the Chevron doctrine, which meant that courts had to defer to executive branch agencies. So in this instance, you do have an executive branch agency interpreting its own authority. And it used to be that a court would have to defer and give weight to that interpretation. That's no longer. So Loper Bright is a great precedent for us. Justice Jackson, during oral argument, started to complain about Loper Bright. I mean, Loper Bright is water under the bridge now. It's a decision that came out over the summer. But she started asking questions like, who are we to second guess the ATF? We're just a bunch of judges, which is an interesting instinct, but that fight's been fought and lost. So those questions went to a bygone era about Chevron deference.
So we're talking with Will Trackman. He's the general counsel for Mountain States Legal Foundation about a big Supreme Court case yesterday. Headlines, though, don't look so good. This is from SCOTUS blog. Court likely to let Biden's ghost gun regulation stand. They point to Amy Coney Barrett and Justice Roberts, who I think won, maybe both, has to side with the conservatives in order to take away, or I guess restrict the ATF's ability to just kind of redefine these laws from the 60s. But their analysis was that it didn't seem that Amy Coney Barrett or Justice Roberts were willing to come over. What's your sense of that? You were in the room.
Right. So there's a famous quote that says the most important constitutional legal principle is that you need 5 votes, which is not really a constitutional legal principle, but that's how you do it. You count to 5, and reading oral argument questions is like reading tea leaves. You can't do it. There are any number of cases in my career where I've come out of oral argument saying, "Oh, the justices were really hostile to one side or the other," and then the ruling comes out and it's the other way. So
they could take a role of, and I do this sometimes, Bill, and you take an argument that you don't necessarily agree with because you want to poke and prod at your own assumptions or something.
That's like my thing. That's like what I do here.
Justice Thorpe.
Exactly.
Yeah. When my wife says, not doing a good job, I'm like, I was just playing devil's advocate. So, so my example with Justice Kagan asking what looks like a question that's good for us. You're absolutely right. That might have been an opportunity to give her advocate a chance to respond to that, to persuade the other judges on the court. So it is possible that people ask questions to put their own advocates to put their feet to the fire. So anything can happen. It is true. We would likely need either Justice Kavanaugh or Justice Barrett or Chief Justice Roberts as well. All those individuals asked questions that maybe indicated some uncertainty about the issue, but they have been very good on administrative law issues. So
that's what it comes down to, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not arguing that. Well, I mean, you are arguing that making ghost guns is a constitutional right, but really the crux of the case is whether or not the ATF can take a rule from 1968 and go, "I've got the power," and just expand it without Congress weighing in.
That's right. And to be honest, this isn't actually a Second Amendment case. This is an administrative law case, which sounds a little bit boring. But the idea is, yes, who decides? Is it Congress, or is it the agency that says, I've got way more power than I ever knew I had, and now I'm going to exercise it after 50 years of not exercising it? And like I said, they've been very good in administrative law. The bump stock case that just came down a few months ago, that oral argument I didn't think went all that great for the bump stock proponents, and they won 6-3. So anything can happen. And here we've got a situation where I think the Supreme Court at least is going to have a hard time writing an opinion against us.
So let's talk about ghost guns. We have a gun epidemic. I know it's an administrative law case, but let's talk a little bit about the Second Amendment. Mountain States Legal Foundation supports the Second Amendment. I do too. And in the spirit of taking arguments on the other side that sometimes our Supreme Court justices may do, we have a gun epidemic in this country. We have a violence epidemic in this country. Should people be allowed to build a gun in their basement, free of regulations from serial numbers and things like that, background checks?
Well, so if you think we still have an epidemic, obviously the last 2 years of this regulation that's been in effect have not made a difference. I don't remember things in 2022 before this regulation was enacted being worse in any substantive way. So I don't think that what you call ghost guns, what I'll call homemade firearms, is really interacting much with the crime problem or the gun problem, even stipulating the background facts of what you're saying. But in the question of whether we have a gun epidemic, we have a need for self-defense. And so if people are armed and people have the ability to defend themselves, that's a good thing. The fact that we have millions of guns in this country means that we have a lot of people who are capable of defending themselves. Now, obviously, we have mental health issues in our society that are leading to some of the tragedies that we've seen lately. And those need to be absolutely addressed. And we need to have a situation where people who go into a school or go into a public place know that other people are armed so that they are deterred from doing that. But that doesn't interact, I don't think, with this case, which is about the time-honored tradition of building your own firearm in your basement with a milling machine, drilling the holes. Those are just not the hallmarks of criminals to do all those things.
What would be wrong with adding a serial number or requiring a background check for someone that wants to buy a gun kit?
So I always say you fight on the margins so that you're not fighting in the center of the battlefield. There are plenty of people who say, why won't you at least give me this on gun regulation? It's just a reasonable thing to restrict people's rights here. And the problem is that those are slippery slopes. Those are ways of building momentum for the bigger fight. We've already seen cities that would ban entirely guns. I mean, the case that was first decided in this area 15 years ago, Heller, was about a handgun ban in Washington, D.C. So I have no doubt of what their ultimate goals are. And if they want to make incremental steps in order to get there, that's what they're going to do. And so you have to fight even the increments in addition to the big battle.
Will Trackman, General Counsel for Mountain States Legal Foundation, help me square that circle. How do serial numbers on a gun kit get us to the idea of the ban? And even then, not just even on the kit itself, but even on the individual parts. What would be the pushback for having the serial numbers on those parts themselves?
So a lot of this is about history. And I understand, because we've been conditioned to hear all these arguments about quote unquote reasonable gun regulations, that we need to tolerate certain changes in gun laws. But again, this was the way of the world between 1968 and 2022. And we didn't see a rash of crime based on homemade firearm kit builders committing crimes. It's much more likely, if you're a criminal, that you're going to get a gun from somewhere other than this place. And so
they tend not to be that smart to begin with.
And they tend not to have milling machines. And, you know, the Solicitor General in her rebuttal argument said, if you don't vote for me, every gun's going to become a ghost gun. And that's just empirically disproven. I mean, that wasn't what the state of the country was in 2022. But to Bill's point, I get it. I understand that people say, why not this reasonable thing? Can't you agree with me on that? And the point is, in our history, we didn't have to do that, and we have to defend every inch of that right.
Well, I want to explore that for a second. I want to explore the harm. You could, but I want to explore the harm. As far as inside of putting the serial numbers on the kits themselves. We know that the most recent assassination attempt for Donald Trump, he had ground down the serial number off of the weapon that he was using. That is also something that criminals do often. They take the guns illegally and then they grind down the serial numbers. Seems to me that the absence of a serial number is more or less the purview of someone who's a criminal. I'm not saying someone that's going to have a gun kit is going to be a criminal, but I'm curious about the harm related to serializing the pieces. Where is the harm created from that action?
So just to be clear, the ATF can only do this if the underlying thing that we're talking about is a firearm. So to Jeff's point, this is about who decides. So if Congress thinks that homemade firearms need to have serial numbers on them, that you need to do a background check before you obtain one, that you can do any number of things with people who build these guns, they can enact those laws. You know, I might fight those laws as not regulating commerce or not being viable under the Constitution, but there's no administrative law issues with those with those types of laws. Here, the question is, can the ATF unilaterally decide, number one, this is a firearm, number two, we have the authority to regulate firearms, and number three, here's a new rash of regulations like serial numbers, like other restrictions on the right to build those homemade firearms. So it's less about the harm that would come from any one thing and more about the dangerousness of giving an unelected bureaucracy the power to restrict our rights.
Yeah, but if Congress came forward and did that, you admitted that you would fight against it. And what I still don't hear in the answer is the direct harm. How does putting a serial number on portions or pieces of a gun kit impact my Second Amendment rights negatively? It doesn't seem to restrict them in any way, shape, or form. I still can have the kit. I still can build it in my home. I accomplish everything you claim as a positive, but what I don't hear is the direct negative harm of putting numbers on the pieces. What's the harm?
But that's what people say about not having an AR-15. Why do you need so many bullets? Why do you need so many rounds? You could get just as much self-defense from a handgun.
I disagree with that. That's a continuum argument. I'm talking about direct harm from putting numbers on the kit. How is my Second Amendment rights infringed by having those numbers on the kit? We can talk about Second Amendment rights and based on number of bullets and everything else, and I concede that point absolutely. But I'm looking for why numbers on the pieces are infringing on someone's Second Amendment right.
But you say the word continuum, and I'm using the word slippery slope. So we're talking about the same thing. If you empower the ATF to start ordering people to do things, and you say that is a thing that doesn't have any harm to it, so I'm okay with it, I'm comfortable with it, that would be a problem. Now, in terms of the congressional, well, yeah, we don't want to give executive branch agencies unchecked authority even to do things that we might think are good.
But if Congress passed the law, then you'd be okay with it? Because that wouldn't be executive. That would be legislative.
If Congress passed the law, this entire case would go away because this is an administrative law case.
But it would just be a different case.
Well, there might be a different case about whether Congress is able to regulate the serial number because Congress has limited enumerated authority. Now, Colorado...
I was going to ask about states. Could a state do that? Yeah.
Yeah, a state could absolutely impose its own or make efforts to impose its own rules on these types of guns. They aren't bound by the Commerce Clause, and they don't have the same administrative law headaches that the ATF ought to have. Now, we would, again, be very skeptical about saying, oh, the state has the power to regulate our Second Amendment rights. But there, at least, the issues in this case wouldn't be as prominent.
Talking with Will Trackman. He's general counsel for Mountain States Legal Foundation. We're talking about Garland v. Vanderstock, which was argued just this week at the U.S. Supreme Court. We'll continue our conversation. I want to talk to you a little bit about QC Kinetics. You don't have to keep living with that joint pain. Real lasting relief is possible with help from QC Kinetics. People here are getting their lives back, getting their mobility back, thanks to QC Kinetics. Joel in our office here was telling me the other day he's never played so much golf in his life. Thanks to QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in cellular therapies that can revitalize your joints. I'm talking about advanced regenerative medicine using your own body's healing properties, highly concentrated and carefully placed in your achy joints. Back pain, shoulder pain, knee pain. These are cutting-edge treatments that require no surgery, no drugs, and no downtime. It's a quick in-office procedure that can get you moving again. These protocols have been developed by medical professionals under the leadership of Dr. Mitchell Scheinkup, a former orthopedic surgeon and a pioneer in clinical regenerative medicine. Listen, is arthritic joint pain keeping you from doing the things you love? Pain in your knees, hips, back, or shoulder? You owe it to yourself to learn more. Call QC Kinetics today for a free consultation. 303-900-8986, 303-900-8986, or QCkinetics.com, with locations in Aurora, Superior, Highlands Ranch, and Colorado Springs. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show and Will Trackman.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Wyo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. Hurricane Milton is the second in a 1-2 punch that hit the Sunshine State in a matter of weeks after Helene ripped through, causing billions of dollars of damage in several southeastern states. Now, according to analysts, the damage left behind by Milton could cost $60 to $100 billion in insurance losses, adding to the issue of high insurance prices or insurers who refuse to pay claims. Martin Weiss, founder of the independent Weiss ratings analysis firm, said, quote, "These are additional risks that, based on the fundamental principles of insurance, should not be present. Your insurance company," he said, "is supposed to be your backup plan. Plus, people in Florida could also be on the hook for more charges if the state-run insurer runs out of money to pay claims." Russia's experimental oral drug for breast cancer could enter a market worth at least $12 billion a year if it clears 2 key trials on early treatment of the disease, according to the Swiss drug maker's CEO. The pill belongs to a class known to fight tumors that grow in response to estrogen, which are estimated to account for up to 80% of all breast cancer cases. The market opportunity has also attracted rivals AstraZeneca and Sanofi, but Sanofi stopped working on it back in 2022 after 2 trials failed. The results from 2 trials are expected in 2025 and 2026. That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Wyo, Salem News Channel.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A DeWalt Atomic 20-volt max cordless impact driver kit, valued at $160. Get it now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Will Trackman, General Counsel for Mountain States Legal Foundation, is joining us fresh off of a Supreme Court battle. This week, Garland v. Vanderstock, which has to do with homemade guns. I didn't even realize I was adopting the nomenclature of the left.
Yes,
but apparently ghost guns is the nomenclature of the left. Huh?
When you go to Subway and you order a fresh value meal, you're just buying into their rhetoric. You have to order a sandwich.
Right. You guys also have a very interesting case, and in light of the disasters taking place, it's definitely timely. DEI and disaster relief. What is going on there?
Yeah, so if you remember when Biden and Harris took office way back in January of 2021, when gas prices were much lower and inflation was down, they announced an executive order called the Equity in Whole of Government Executive Order. And
sounds like something the left have put together. Equity in the whole of government.
That's right. So the message was clear. Every executive branch agency, including my former agency, the Department of Education, was instructed to rethink everything they do in terms of equity. And just within a matter of days, they withdrew guidance that we had issued on not segregating schools, not grading students differently based on race, not training teachers differently based on race because they were conflicted. They conflicted with equity. And then we saw that trickle down in other agencies. So they passed a COVID-19 debt relief program in 2021 that gave debt relief specifically to non-white farmers and ranchers. We sued over that. We got that program halted. It was eventually repealed. And just in the last year, we discovered another DEI program out of the Department of Agriculture where disaster relief was being doled out based on race to farmers and ranchers. So if you had a tornado hit your farm and you were an African American, you would likely get up to 100% of the damage done to your farm or your ranch from the Department of Agriculture. On the other hand, if you were white, you would get something like 10 or 20%. They call it progressive factoring, which is itself an ominous term.
Whoa.
And so
progressive factoring.
And so this was money that Congress allocated and that the Biden-Harris USDA, again, the Department of Agriculture, decided to adopt racial preferences in. So we sued over that earlier this year. We now have an injunction preventing them from doing that. But it is part and parcel of what we're seeing with this administration, which is whenever they can insert racial preferences, race discrimination in anything.
It's just racism.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and this is disaster relief, too. So you would think of all the places where you wouldn't want racial considerations to come into play. You would think, well, you know, a tornado doesn't discriminate,
Right.
but now the federal government does in terms of disaster relief.
And where are you in the process of that case?
So we've already gotten the preliminary injunction. That's the good news. We've already halted the USDA doing this. Now, of course, our clients have been injured in the past, and that hasn't been remedied, but at least they won't be injured again in the future pending this lawsuit. The government has asked for an extension of time to respond. They haven't even appealed the injunction, which is usually what you do when you lose about a federal program, you appeal. They've decided not to increase the blast radius of their loss, which I suppose is good strategy for them. But it goes now. We're doing summary judgment motions. I have a good feeling that we'll have those done by the end of the year and get a verdict sometime early next year.
Now, Will Trackman, General Counsel for Mountain States Legal Foundation, I want to reiterate that point. I want you to walk us through again that the Department of Agriculture was awarding disaster relief money based on some racial qualifications, meaning if you had certain melanin in your skin, you could get more money than someone that had less melanin in your skin. Outline for our audience what the justification was from the Department of Agriculture as to why these decisions had to be made. What reasons did they give you for making these kind of decisions?
Equity, right? So the argument, I think, from their perspective is African-American farmers and other minority farmers have faced so much in the way of hurdles in getting to where they are. And so when a tornado hits their farm or ranch, they have to go further back in time, I suppose, because it's more likely that they don't have as much history with their farm. Maybe they don't have the credit that other farmers and ranchers do. And so the only way to make things fair and even the playing field is to afford them more disaster relief. Even saying that, you can kind of feel gross about the idea that this would be something that your federal government, your taxpayer dollars are going to. But that's the best they've come up with, is that this is needed in order to balance the playing field.
I mean, could you imagine somebody showing up I'm from the government in Asheville, North Carolina? John A., you have this amount of damage to your farm. We want to help you recover that. John B., you have an equal amount of damage to your farm. We want to help you recover that. We see that here, according to your form you filled out, one of you is of a certain race. Therefore, you're going to receive more money to help rebuild your farm. I mean, that's just, look, that's not America, man.
It's unbelievable, right?
Right.
So the way I can prove it to you is that we have a court order from a judge saying stop. And because the federal government acknowledged that they were doing this, and they acknowledged that the best justification that they could come up with was the one that I just gave to Bill. So it wasn't close, to be honest. But the fact that they tried is really worrisome. And the fact that Kamala Harris has said in public interviews, I do think that we ought to put equity front and center when it comes to disasters. That was in 2022. And the fact that we've had a couple of videos leaked from FEMA now, where internal FEMA staff is talking about putting LGBT needs first, putting equity needs first. And we're in the middle of, the second hurricane in as many weeks. And it looks like Kamala Harris
It just pisses me off. Sorry, I probably shouldn't say that. But it like this putting people into categories, ranking them, taking taxpayer dollars and allocating them based upon arbitrary rankings that fit some political narrative of oppression is just not American.
No, and it's of course it's arbitrary. Just like we saw in the affirmative action case, the government itself couldn't answer what is the difference between an Afghan person who's classified as white and an Indian person who's classified as Asian? What is the substantive difference between those two people? And even the categories themselves, the government couldn't answer. Like, I couldn't tell you what person goes into which category.
Well, and then they run around going that we need to be about unity.
Yeah,
like
right.
I can't imagine something that's more in the opposite direction of creating actual disunity by cataloging and categorizing everybody based upon melatonin and then doling out tax dollars based upon it. My goodness. All right, look, are you a homeowner who's considering selling your home? Like Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team used their database of over 14,700 ready buyers to get your home sold for top dollar. Many real estate agents make promises, but very few have the proof to back it up. The Empower Home team has review after review from families they have served that back up what they say. They net their sellers 6.1% more money on average, getting their sellers $30,500 more in their pocket. No matter who wins the election, no matter what kind of market we're in, the Empower Home team brings both experience and track record to help you navigate your home sale and get you top dollar. If your home doesn't sell, listen to this. Gay Ribble will actually buy it. That's her guarantee to you. Reach out to my friends and realtors, Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team of Keller Williams. Call 833-301-SOLD. That's 833-301-SOLD, or visit gayhasthebuyers.com. GAYE hasthebuyers.com. We'll continue our conversation with Will Trackman of Mountain States Legal Foundation. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A DeWalt Atomic 20-volt max cordless impact driver kit, valued at $160. Get it now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Joining us live in studios, Will Trackman, General Counsel for Mountain States Legal Foundation, fresh off of a major Supreme Court argument that took place over this past week. Garland v. Vanderstock, which is the homemade gun ban effort by the ATF, and had a fantastic conversation with him. Let's go to the phone lines. Tony, Denver, good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Good morning. Thanks for accepting my call. Avid listener, first time follower.
What's on your mind?
Hello?
Yeah, what's on your mind?
That guy is talking about discrimination against black farmers. It sounds completely racist and full of it. There's traditionally been a very big discrimination against black farmers in terms of the aid they get, given that the aid comes in the form of state block grants. And it's been found over the years due to several lawsuits by NAACP and other sources that black farmers get discriminated.
Yeah, Tony, it's a little hard to hear it, but I think I'm going to translate. We just got to get Will's take on this real quick. We only got about a minute. So he's saying, look, there's been lots of discrimination against black farmers over the years with block granting to the states. What's your response to that?
Well, Mountain States Legal Foundation, my firm, is firmly opposed to discrimination in all forms, including discrimination against African Americans. Here, the justification for some of the recent programs is that there was discrimination a generation ago in the Department of Agriculture. And that's true. There were two settlements under the Obama administration called Pigford I and Pigford II that doled out billions of dollars to those people who faced discrimination. But more recently, Raphael Warnock from Georgia and Cory Booker from New Jersey have said it's not just about the discrimination that happened, it's about the disproportion of benefits that go out the door. So under the Trump COVID-19 relief programs, something like 95% of that relief went to white farmers and ranchers. But that's because 95% of farmers and ranchers are white. So it shouldn't be too surprising when a number like that gets thrown around. That doesn't mean that you start intentionally discriminating against whites and saying we are going to use what they call progressive factoring to discriminate against whites and discriminate in favor of other racial categories. Just generally, our firm is in favor of neutrality, racial neutrality. If you can give out disaster relief, that's fine. It just has to be neutral across the board without regard to race.
Will Trackman, General Counsel for Mountain States Legal Foundation, an absolutely wonderful organization defending your constitutional rights. You can learn more about them by visiting mslegal.org. We'll continue the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. Gonna go see Trump tomorrow? We are.
It is 9 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Billy Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations, you woke up in the greatest country in history. We're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Big news, 710 KNUS will be live from the Gaylord, broadcasting in the run-up to Trump's rally from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. We will be down there.
They're letting me in the building.
If you swing by, I don't think they know.
I don't think
quite
they do
yet.
That's why I'm assuming that at some portion of the broadcast tomorrow morning, I'm going to be escorted from the facility.
Out, right?
Yes. So again, you got to
Do you
tune in
remember
or
the
show
old
up.
DJ Jazzy Jeff getting tossed out on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
Exactly. That's exactly it. So got to make sure to spend time with us this morning because, again, start your betting over under. When is Bill going to get escorted from the premises?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's going to be important tomorrow on your bingo card.
Well, it's going to be a ton of fun down there. These rallies are always a good time. You're with some of Colorado's finest people. They love this country. They love their families. They want to defend our constitutional rights. They stand for the national anthem. By the way, Kamala Harris doesn't think that's necessary. How can you be the president of the United States and think that that's not necessary? My goodness.
Oh, we should have that conversation someday, but today's not the day, my friends. Today's not the day. We got to talk about DJ Tate.
Tomorrow, there'll be people standing for the flag. By the way, did you see that video he did about the military?
No, I don't think I did.
Oh, my gosh. So yesterday at a rally, he shows this video, and it's that is it the Full Metal Jacket movie where the drill sergeant's yelling at all the guys?
The Full Metal Jacket.
Right.
Yeah.
So he cuts and intersplices Full Metal Jacket with the crazy progressive way the military is now doing TikToks dressed as trans people and stuff like that. And then, the military officials talking about DEI.
Yeah.
And so, hearkening back to what the military used to be, full of those tough fighters.
Yeah, except the timeline doesn't necessarily agree. Because our military has often been one of the most progressive organizations.
Not this progressive, though.
No, but just in general. The
Dudes
military,
in dresses,
I know,
man.
but
Come on.
the military was one of the first organizations to integrate. And they did it poorly at first and then did that. They were one of the first ones. They were the first ones to.
I'm not disagreeing with
to
that.
talk about
but that's
LGBTQ rights, things like that.
Oh, man.
Well, I know.
It was a strong, powerful.
I get it. But this is, and the only reason I point it out is because I think there's this weird dichotomy with people that believe that the military is getting too progressive when they've always been progressive. That's always been kind of their thing. Not saying they're going out there and fighting for gay rights and gay marriage. I'm just saying they always have been on the forefront. That's why they're leaning into certain EVs right now. That's why they're looking at that supply chain.
Your EV.
I know, but that's
Hummer.
what they're doing. But they've analyzed it and said this, in order to preserve our safety as a nation, we have to be able to do X.
I will tell you this, though. The contrast in that video, though, is that at one point we were a fierce fighting machine, and now we're dudes in dresses dancing around on TikTok videos. It's like, what the heck happened to our military? You can be progressive on racial issues and still maintain being a tough fighting force of warriors that are
we not?
Are out there. If you're dancing around in a dress on a TikTok, it does not come across that you're a fierce fighting warrior.
Well,
it comes across as being a beta male.
Well, the thing for me that I would look at is if we look around the world, what other militaries are challenging us? What other military can stand up to us? Is there a military out there that says, okay, we're going to be able to invade country Y because we know the American military is just dancing around a bunch of dresses and a bunch of patsies right now? I don't think there's a single country on the planet that views it that way.
I have a fear that it's building, but we can continue this conversation. Yeah. Let's get first to news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Jeff and Bill. Yeah, that video is awesome. And we actually talked about this like 5 or 6 months ago, but the contrast, and that's exactly what needs to happen. I mean, it's a joke the way, when we have our higher ups in military running around in dresses. What a joke. other leaders in other countries are just laughing, and we don't show our strength there. And that
the
is
dudes
important.
running around in dresses. A girl.
Yeah, the dudes.
Right.
I don't have a problem with that. Yeah, of course. In uniform. No, but the video is great. I agree. It's awesome. And everyone should see it. It's crucial. 59 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 84 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
We saw, catastrophic impacts in the Tampa Bay region across much of the West Coast down to Fort Myers in terms of storm surge. We've seen the wind damage across portions of the Tampa St. Petersburg area. We saw substantial hurricane force wind gusts all through the I-4 corridor. And even still this morning, strong winds and storm surge ongoing along the East Coast.
Michael Brennan, National Hurricane Center. The sun is revealing the storm-battered Florida West Coast. Milton made landfall last night as a powerful Category 3 hurricane just south of Sarasota, leaving at least 4 dead and millions without power. Search and rescue teams, including an 80-member team from Colorado, are going through the rubble. Rory O'Neill from NBC News. He lives in Orlando, but reporting from South Florida today. On with Jeff and Billy this morning. The storm
had winds upwards of 180 miles per hour, off the chart Cat 5 stuff, gusts over 200 miles an hour. That's the sort of stuff we associate with typhoons in the Pacific hitting Japan, not in the Gulf of Mexico. So bizarre to see this powerful storm. And when I told you 180, over 200, Cat 5, that's going to make any old Floridian, who I don't care how many storms he's been through, they're going to get out. And that's why we saw so many people evacuate ahead of this.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says it's not a worst-case scenario situation after Hurricane Milton hit his state. The governor said as the day goes on, they'll get a better idea of the extent of the damage caused by the storm. DeSantis said inspections of bridges in Tampa, north of where Milton made landfall, are underway, and some have been reopened. But tornadoes were everywhere, and high winds severely damaged Tropicana Field and its roof, home of the Rays.
In this case, though, it looked like it came out of Oklahoma, a few of them. And we really haven't seen tornadoes of this category before. And sadly, they caused multiple fatalities in places like Port St. Lucie. Now, that is on the Atlantic coast, not the Gulf Coast. It's on the Atlantic coast, north of West Palm Beach. And it wasn't really in the zone for getting the worst of Hurricane Milton. So I think they may have been caught off guard.
Plenty of stories will come out of Florida today. 2 Thornton police officers are injured and a suspect is dead following a neighborhood shooting Wednesday morning.
Our officers are exposed to difficult situations daily. Today, we were far too close to losing one of our own officers.
Thornton Interim Police Chief Greg Reeves revealed that a man came out of a home with a rifle and began firing at officers. They were called after reports of popping sounds inside a home. They arrived and surrounded the location before the exchange began. 2 officers were injured by either gunfire or shrapnel and are in stable condition. They believe the suspect was hit by returning fire and fled into the home where he was later confirmed dead.
It's surreal. It's a quiet neighborhood. It's unbelievable. I just couldn't believe that it was happening in my neighborhood. I couldn't.
Missy Kramer lives across the street. Former President Trump in Pennsylvania last night.
Head hate on me. Can't stop DJ T, and I ain't going nowhere, so you can get to know me.
And he'll be in Aurora tomorrow for the big event at Gaylord in Aurora. And Jeff and Billy will be out there doing their show live tomorrow morning. Come on out. Kamala Khan told The View the other day that she really wouldn't do anything different from what the Biden-Harris administration did, even though she's responsible for the crimes occurring on the southern border.
She lost 325,000 migrant children. Their parents are looking for them. Think of you with their parents. Think of you with their parents. 325 due to incompetence, due to the fact that she had the worst border, due to the fact she let our great people not run the border. She got rid of all the things that we were doing. We had the safest border. We went from the safest to the worst. Those children are now dead, in slavery, or just plain missing. Probably most of them will never be found again. Think of that. 325,000 because of their incompetence.
There's reportedly another investigation going on into New York City Mayor Eric Adams's administration. Sources tell the New York Times the Manhattan District Attorney's Office is looking into the city's real estate leasing deals with commercial properties. Once again, he spoke out too much, and they're going after him. The great Rafael Nadal is retiring after 22 Grand Slam titles in tennis. He's 38 years old. And you know what? I've always been hot and cold on primetime. Deion Sanders, just for Jeff this morning, since he's wearing the Prime jersey. I'm hot on this one. This week, I agree with Deion on this one.
Whatever you want in life, you're going to have to sacrifice something. If you want a lot, you're going to sacrifice a lot. It's not you sacrifice a little and you get a lot. It don't work like that. Life don't work like that. Life is pretty much consistent tremendously. And football has no feelings or emotions for you. So what you put in, normally you get out.
Well, I agree with that one. They take on 18th ranked Kansas State on Saturday. Both teams 4-1. That's going to be a great game. Saturday night.
CU, CSU, they're all looking good. How's UNC looking?
Well, not, let's just put it like this. We're looking for the first win in almost 2 years. So this weekend, take on Weber State. I'll be on a bus tomorrow, and Weber State in Utah, and we're trying to break this 17-game losing streak. Coach Lamb is doing a great job trying to turn this program around. You have to go through it, playing a lot of young players. They're lifting, they're bigger, stronger, faster, and one day they will win. And I just pray it's this weekend against Weber. But the problem is Weber State beat Montana last weekend, and they are a very good FCS team. So we'll see if we can turn around.
There you go.
All right. Now you have it. 57 in Aurora. I love Prime, by the way. 58 in Littleton.
You are hot and cold on him.
Yeah, I am, man. I am so hot and cold on that dude. 59 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue Thursday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Another day of sunshine in the Front Range. Highs this afternoon in the lower to mid 80s. Lows tonight low and mid 50s with light winds. Cold front comes in tomorrow. That will cool us off to the mid 70s. Wrapping up the work week. Keeping it dry though with hazy sunshine. Lows Friday night low 50s. Back in the low 80s Saturday. Mid 70s Sunday. Weather brought to you by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
MAGA will be gathering in Aurora tomorrow. All the rest of us that haven't left this state are going to get together and see Trump. I bet we'll get some good folks down from Wyoming too. Maybe some folks from Kansas, because he's not making campaign stops there.
Yeah, you know how Broncos fans travel, in other states.
Yeah,
I think
right.
we're going to have the same thing here. And you talked about with Jeff Hildebrand, the friend, he's going to join us tomorrow morning for Rhyme Time on the phone. He's not going to be down there with us. So he's going to return. But you talked about the horse whisperer guy. And you talked about how at the church, there are people from all different states coming in to see. And that was just based on this Christian outreach. Donald Trump draws a larger crowd. Hate to say it, than our Lord sometimes right now, which is kind of silly. But still, I think this is going to be a road trip. I think it's going to be a road trip from Utah. This is a road trip from even Montana. I think they're going to see Wyoming, Nebraska, Kansas, Idaho. I think because this is his Western stop. This is when he's going to come here. Yeah,
this is very true. So let's talk about who we're going to expect to see on stage and who we won't see on stage. And I'm going to keep a list.
More interesting.
I'm going to keep a list, and we're going to see tomorrow if it happens. My guess, if I had to put money on anybody being on stage with Donald Trump tomorrow, it is Danielle Jurinsky.
Oh, that's a good
I think
one.
she earns it.
Yeah.
I think she'll be up there. I think she's bold enough to throw off all the concerns about being with Trump on stage. She doesn't care. She's going to get up there and high five the guy and go, thanks for coming.
I'm going to play devil's advocate on this one. I love Danielle. I think she's fantastic. Great friend of the show. Love what she's doing in my home city of Aurora. Does she rank high enough on the totem pole to break through the schedulers? I'm not talking about DJT saying, no, I don't want her on. I'm talking about the people that are not from Colorado, that are not from Aurora.
Good question.
Yeah. Does a Aurora City Council member rank high enough on the pecking order to get on the stage before Donald Trump does? And if so, where is she? The person that opens the mic at 11, or is she someone that is at closer?
She'll be in the and she'll be in the run up. And the reason why is Dr. Phil and her presence on Fox and the fact that she has been leading on this issue. And I want to get to John Fabricatore in a second, but she has been the force, not letting Kyle Clark get away with blaming code violations on Venezuelan gang issues. She's never said the city of Aurora has been totally taken over by Venezuelan gangs. She has always stuck to her guns and said it was a particular set of apartment complexes that we visited that were being extorted by Venezuelan gang members because the tenants were illegal immigrants themselves, so they're not going to call the police. That's what happened. She refused to back down, even when Jared Polis said it's a feature of her imagination. She stood strong on this. She is going to be one of the key run-ups, and the people of Aurora are going to celebrate her, and she deserves it. So I think she'll be on there. I think Lauren Boebert will be in there. It's close to her congressional district, if not in it. She doesn't back away. I think she'll be on there.
Yeah, she's a rock star, though. I think that she does it based on presence, based on everything else. Yeah.
John Fab, think he gets on the stage?
Here's the thing. If the campaign has done its background research and understands John Fab, his role in the story, and the fact that he's trying to unseat a current Congress member and switch a seat from blue to red, I think strategically you can't leave him off. I think it is a huge mistake. If anybody in the scheduling leaves him off, you have made a horrible mistake, because this is a wonderful platform for him to talk to a bunch of people. It's a wonderful platform to him to start a lot of momentum. It's got some great campaign messaging inside of there, and he is representing that area. So you got to switch that seat.
Yeah, ICE and all that background.
Yep, exactly. He ticks all the boxes. So it's a huge mistake if he is not up on stage. And again, he's bald and looks like he would just kick ass. So again, there's so many things. That helps a lot. Doesn't like me.
MAGA, Marvel, Avengers.
Exactly.
Text message 0556. Greg Lopez is going to speak, just FYI. Interesting.
Is he? He's making the trip from DC.
Now,
Nice.
Greg would definitely be a good speaker, talented speaker, not as high profile as I thought, but also a Hispanic Republican.
Would make sense.
So makes sense. All right. So we got Danielle, we got Lauren, possibly a John. What do you think? You got to put a yes or no on John.
Yes.
Yes.
And the reason I say yes is because I can't imagine that the Trump campaign would make that large of a mistake strategically.
Miss Fab out there.
I just can't think that you would miss that one.
So, and then obviously, apparently, Greg Lopez is speaking. So I'll put him in the yes category. I think that's a good one for the day. Mayor Mike.
No, not at all. And honestly, I think that would be Kaufman's decision, not Trump's. I think if the invitation was extended, I believe he would decline, just based on what we've seen from him and what we know behind the scenes.
I put a meme of Forrest Gump running, the one where he runs down his driveway and turns and runs down the street real quick.
Yeah, where Jenny is going, run, Forrest, run.
Yeah, I write, I'm out of here. And I wrote Mike Kaufman upon hearing that Donald Trump's coming.
That is true.
And I think it's a mistake for Mike, but I understand that wing of the Republican Party. There's a wing that is not a fan of Donald Trump. I get it. I disagree with it. He's the top of the ticket. You stand with the guy. Showing cracks in our movement I think doesn't help. You don't see this with Kamala Harris. People going, well, she's totally unqualified. I'm a Democrat, but she's totally unqualified, and I'm not going to stand with her. You just don't see it. They lump together. They work together. They always stand as a unified front. And I wish Republicans would do that as well. But I'm just a former coalitions director.
And what do you know? Bringing people together and stuff. How do you possibly have an expertise in this matter?
All right. Let's go with the next one. Cory Gardner.
Oh, I would say no.
No way.
And the only reason is relevancy.
200 miles away from this thing.
Yeah, and the other part is relevancy.
Yep.
I mean, he lost his seat to Hickenlooper. And the only thing, and that's the problem, is, okay, this is kind of going a little bit afield, but we talked about the debates. And the debates normally are boiled down to one takeaway moment. And that is how your political career is often defined, based on one or two sentences. Once you leave office, everybody remembers you based on this construct. And unfortunately, I believe part of Cory's message or part of Cory's story is losing to Hickenlooper in in my opinion, one of the worst run political campaigns this state has seen in a couple of years. Easily, a couple of election cycles.
Hicks run?
Cory was so weak against Hick. That's what I think. That rather than Hick winning, I feel Cory lost based on how he used his campaign resources and the messages that he used. I think he lost it rather than Hickenlooper winning that one.
So likely no Gabe or Cory Gardner. Now I want to get to the big ones that are running for Congress. Gabe Evans. He's in a 50-50 district. I think we see Gabe on stage, maybe not speaking, but I think we see Gabe on stage. What do you think?
Oh, I think they should put Gabe on stage. And for me, I think that anybody that is a Republican and running for a national seat should be there.
I agree with
because
that.
I think because the idea is in professional wrestling, you call it giving him the rub, which sounds a little weird. But the idea is that because of my star power, when you appear next to me and you work with me and we do things together, I have that rubs off on you. So it elevates your standing in the public based on my working with you.
Well, I think you'll see Gabe there. I don't think you'll see Jeff Hurd or Jeff Crank on the stage.
I don't think so either. And
Hurd won't come on this station.
Yeah. Which is weird.
This is going to be either they check the box and they get Hurd in as a Republican, and we go back to the Scott Tipton years. I ran the Western Conservative Summit. Tipton, a congressman in Colorado, never spoke at it.
Yeah, it's weird.
They just disappear into kind of like constituent work. They're not movement conservatives. They're not out there fighting. You don't see Jeff Hurd taking on the radical left. He just is better than having a Democrat there, basically.
Yeah. And the other part I think may play into it is we know that the Colorado GOP is well connected with the Trump campaign, and there may be some conversations of who are the best people to put on the stage, who are the best people. And I think that given some of the problems between the GOP party,
that's why you might not see Crank up there.
Yeah, Hurd and Crank. And I think that's part of it, is that when you talk about the best list, I think the best isn't going to include those names just coming from the state party. And again, the state party can make whatever choices they want, and that could be the evaluation of Dave Williams.
I go back to the days when we had the entire delegation up on stage, when the major presidential candidate, we were united in the R brand, and we were getting behind Republicans.
Think about this. How effective would it be if you had just a shot that you could use in campaigns where you had Donald Trump at the center of the stage and the Republicans flanking him on either side?
Right.
And that is a standard shot that all the candidates can use.
Right.
Yeah. That would be really powerful.
We've
It'd be
got
really
all these
helpful.
cracks and divisions in our movement.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then Dave Williams.
Ooh, I would say yes.
I think so too.
Yeah,
I'm gonna put
I
him
think
down
so.
as a yes.
Because of it would seem to me that if this is the only visit and we're focusing on issues here in Colorado and we're focusing on the Venezuelan gang, the migrant issue, it would be weird to not have the head of the party up there talking. The thing for me is, who else but him? Who takes his slot? It's the idea of making the wedding list, who you're going to invite to go to the reception.
Right.
You got to go, well, do we really invite your best friend from college, or who else takes that slot at the table? So who takes that slot? If not, I can't think of anybody else that should take a slot away from Dave Williams right now. I think he's earned that slot and should be there.
All right, let's go to celebrities.
Ooh.
Any celebrities you think? I've got one that I think will be there.
Gosh, here's the thing: it would have to be a Colorado celebrity, not something that is national.
Right.
Oh,
so John Elway is typically fundraises for Republicans,
Yeah.
but I don't think he's a fan of Trump.
No, and the thing is, I think that, and this is what John Elway has been very, very effective at controlling his public image.
Yeah.
He campaigns and fundraises behind the scenes, but he's very
But
conscious.
he did get
of
on
that
stage with
public.
Mitt Romney.
Yes, he
in
did.
12.
Yes, he did. Yeah, but I do think that getting
But I
on the
don't
stage
think he
with
likes Trump.
Mitt Romney is a lot safer than getting on the stage with Trump. I'm just saying that, visual wise, that it's there are a whole bunch of different questions they're going to be asked one way or
So
the other.
I think no on an Elway, but I think yes on Derek Wolf.
Oh, now that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's
Because Derek
interesting.
is becoming pretty vocal these days, especially on X. He was fighting back and forth with Kyle Clark the other day.
Yeah.
He's a hunter. He's well known in Colorado, well respected. He's becoming more bold.
Yeah.
He's not all the way out there being, in the fight for the conservative movement, but he's become very friendly to them. And you bring in a dude that just looks amazing. Have you seen him
former
recently?
Broncos. Oh, not recently, but I don't
He's
stalk
got
him
the
like you do on social
hair.
media.
He's big. I mean, looks good. Got the cool haircut. Broncos.
Yeah,
And he
the
killed a
Broncos
mountain
connection.
lion.
Yeah, the Broncos connection, the mountain lion, and if they wrap, and again, why he's not the spokesperson for the mountain lion, I don't know. But if they wrap that in, I think because he's a Bronco, that makes a heck of a lot of sense. And I like Derek Wolf a lot. There are some things we disagree on, but I love his personality because,
Yeah, he's fun.
Like me, he's not afraid of conflict, and he will go right at you. And I appreciate the hell out of that. In fact, I miss him on local radio. I loved his voice and what he was able to do and how he approached things. There are times like, you are just as grouchy as I am sometimes. I felt the kindred spirit, even though that, we didn't always agree on stuff. That would be smart. I hadn't thought about him, but and again, it takes the Bronco thing. Because in professional wrestling, there's a thing called cheap pops. And what that means is when you get in the ring, you want to get the crowd to cheer for you. And you'll see this at concerts. Most people experience this at concerts. It's when the person on stage goes, "How are we doing tonight, Denver?" And everybody goes, "Yay, they mentioned my city, yay." That's what it is. and because in Colorado, because of the prominence of the Broncos, which is different than Rockies, Avalanche, Nuggets, the Broncos are a guaranteed cheer. So just having a person that's up there as a Bronco, you'll get a cheer. You could bring the assistant equipment manager for the Broncos up on stage, and that person is going to get a loud cheer. It's just Broncos. That's it. Yeah.
All right. So here's the lineup that we got. Anybody else I'm missing, you think?
Not that I can think of, but I'm not the best at this. You're much better at this than I am.
And I planned these, right? I did summits or 2 full days of speakers and lineups and how you move the energy. And, if you spoke early in the day, that was for a reason. If you spoke late in the evening, that was for a reason too.
Yep.
So here's the lineup we got. Danielle Jurinsky, Lauren Boebert, John Fabricatori, Greg Lopez, Gabe Evans, Dave Williams, Derek Wolf. That's a pretty good night.
It's a really good night.
Yeah.
That's a really good. Okay. Now, if you're stacking those, let's assume all those are there. You're stacking them in order.
Yep.
Who do you lead with? I have an idea on who I would lead with, but who do you lead with?
I would start with Dave Williams and Greg Lopez, and then work my way, and then do Gabe Evans, Lauren Boebert, Danielle Jurinsky, and I'd peak it with Derek Wolf right before Trump.
Where's John Fabricatori?
Oh,
it wasn't listed there,
sorry. Fab would be earlier on. I would build with the girls.
Yeah.
So Lauren Boebert's going to fire you up, and then give the stage to Danielle Jurinsky, who has earned it. Right. And the energy behind her is going to be huge at that point. And then cap it off with Derek Wolf. And then out comes Trump.
That's a good one. And that's the thing and what I'm looking at, I like the idea. See, for me, I would open with Williams and then go to Lopez. And the reason
that's what I would do too.
Yeah. And I'd open with Williams because he is the Colorado State GOP chair. It's the idea of, hey, welcome all of you. Welcome all. You've done that too. You've done the opening welcome statement. And that makes sense. It's not because Dave isn't a good speaker. It's because that seems like the logical way to kick off an event like this, that the person that would be the state party chair would be the person to introduce. I like the idea of Lopez next. And I was curious about Fab because I think that Fab and Jurinsky have to be separated by at least a speaker because the messages, the message is similar. Exactly. So someone has to, and maybe even 2 speakers, but I just think there has to be a buffer. Otherwise, the 2 sentimentalities of the back-to-back speeches are going to be too similar. I like the Derek Wolf idea if we're able to have him lean into the professional wrestling aspect of the Broncos aspect of, hey, we are getting ready for the game. It's game time. What do you do in the huddle? What are you talking about beforehand?
Wolf call and all that.
Yeah. So if he can lean into that, if he's comfortable doing that, he is the best person to be on stage right before Trump because he's the hype man. He is the perfect hype man. If not, I would lean into Jurinsky. But what I would be doing is I'd make her the hype woman and I would let her make her speech, but I would co-write with her final 2 paragraphs and say, this is how we are going to lead into Trump together. I want to make sure she's comfortable with it, but I want to make sure that the energy is right and the lead into Trump is also on point. So and to make sure that she also looks the best. I don't want her going up there and at the tail end of her speech, run out of energy and not know how to pass. So I want to make sure that makes sense going from one to the next. Because, again, you're jerking the curtain. And again, professional wrestling, the idea is the champ is here. And you point to the curtain and the curtain comes back and there comes the champ with the belt.
Well, and you remember I told you the story of the opening problem I had with Trump in 2016.
No, what was that?
You remember that? Where he was so late?
Oh, yeah.
And I grabbed him and threw him on stage?
Yes, I do remember that. Yes.
I'll tell you that story in a second. Here's a text message, 8422. It would never happen, but if Peyton Manning showed up, there would honestly be a game changer for the state.
That would be.
It would be a game changer for the state, but there's no way Peyton's doing it.
No,
you're right.
No, he won't, because as soon as he does that, he's going to get people throwing stuff at him during his ESPN game call stuff. Yeah.
And that guy is about as pure of a brand as you can get.
Yeah, he is. He's done a great job.
We'll get to your calls, and I'll tell you about the time that I grabbed Donald Trump's arm and forcefully escorted him onto the stage because he was missing his cue.
So understand this, that Jeff forcefully makes Trump do something he wasn't necessarily prepared to do. This is going to be a fun conversation.
Yeah, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Wyo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. The Florida At this hour, I'm Christina Wyo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. The Florida Highway Patrol is sending a message to people who have pets and may be leaving a natural disaster situation, saying, do not do this to your pets, please, after finding a dog standing in a flooded field and tied to a pole just hours before Hurricane Milton made landfall. Thankfully, troopers saw the dog and rescued it. Otherwise, the dog would not have been able to escape the winds of about 175 miles an hour and the massive storm surge that swept through the area. At the very least, if you leave your pet behind, give it the opportunity to save itself instead of tying it down with no ability to run. Vice presidential candidate Tim Walz said the Electoral College needs to go and that the presidency should be determined by a popular vote instead. At a campaign fundraiser, Walz said, I think all of us know the Electoral College needs to go. The Minnesota governor adding, we need a national popular vote, but that's not the world we live in. However, campaign officials were quick to rush in and try to clean up the mess, saying that his position is not the campaign stance. Walz has made similar comments in Seattle, and he signed legislation last year that would look to replace the Electoral College. Jury selection has started in the corruption trial of former Illinois House Speaker Michael Madigan, once the longest-serving legislative leader in U.S. history. The Small Business Administration could run out of money to fund disaster loans in the wake of Hurricane Helene's devastation. That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Wyo, Salem News Channel.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A DeWalt Atomic 20-volt max cordless impact driver kit, valued at $160. Get it now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're previewing Donald Trump at the Gaylord tomorrow here in Aurora. Who do you expect to speak?
And how soon am I going to get kicked out?
Yeah, exactly. Billy and I have put together our list. We think Danielle Jurinsky, Lauren Boebert, likely John Fabricatori, Greg Lopez, Gabe Evans, Dave Williams, and I would love to see Derek Wolf up there. So
that'd be cool.
We'll have to. Our nose, Mayor Mike Kaufman, Corey Gardner, Jeff Hurd, Jeff Crank, John Elway, Peyton Manning.
Yeah, no, not
no
there.
Peyton
No,
Manning.
no.
But tell us who you'd like to see. And so in the run up, so I hosted Trump in 2016, and a huge operation, right? We had all these protesters there, so we had to bus everybody to we had them meet at a hotel, bus them to a secret entrance. They had to all go through security. We had to deal with the press. We had 200 media outlets covering it on risers with cameras and all that. And this was my very first Western conservative summit. It was it was a steep learning curve. So that morning, we get word from his people. He's taking off. He's on his way. He's going to be on time. Great. Fantastic. Right?
Side note. Of the politicians that you have dealt with in the course of your lifetime and also dealing with Western Conservative Summit, what percentage are on time?
I will tell you, Donald Trump was the latest by far.
You're the
by
best.
Far.
You are the best.
So-
This is why we're friends. That was such a good tactical answer.
And so we hear he's on his way, and here's how I had planned it.
Yeah.
So a little bit of history. Donald Trump did not win the Republican nomination from the Colorado delegation at our state party convention.
They walked out on him.
And Ted Cruz won.
Yeah.
And somebody from the state party texted or tweeted from the state party account, "We did it, #never Trump."
Yeah.
So it looked like the Colorado Republican Party officially worked to prevent Donald Trump from winning the delegates from the state party. That's a whole nother side story about that, because I used to run social media for Colorado Republican Party. But that was not me. In fact, they could never really learn who did it. They did it from an iPhone.
Intern.
And no one had changed the password for the Twitter access in like 15 years or something. So they had no idea who did it. But somebody from an iPhone did it. And you remember they were going to sue, and they sued Twitter to try to figure it out. Never were able to prove it. But anyways, that was the history. The history was Colorado did not support Donald Trump. And I had the first time he had come here since all that. So that was part of my planning. So here was the lineup. That morning, we were going to start with Sarah Palin. Awesome. Right? Yeah. Get the crowd going.
Yep.
We found Clarice Navarro to introduce Sarah Palin. Then Sarah Palin was going to lead into the chairman of the Colorado Republican Party, Steve House, because now it was time to mend fences.
Yeah.
I wanted the picture for the conservative movement of Steve House shaking hands with Donald Trump.
Yeah. Saying we're friends.
We're friends. Right? Movement is together.
I can say good things about him. Here he is. Yeah,
exactly.
Yep.
Okay. So we start with Sarah Palin, right?
Yeah.
Kick it off. Lots of energy. We hear he's landed at Centennial, all that.
Yeah. And Palin's a strong speaker.
And Palin's a strong speaker.
Not
So
the best,
we're having
not
fun.
the best orator, but strong speaker. Yes.
I get the crowd going on faith, family, freedom. I go, one side faith, one side family, the other side freedom. And we're having all that fun. And then it comes to a crashing halt. By the way, we had gotten there. People had to get there at like 5 a.m. To go through security. They've been there all day. It's been a long morning already. And then Trump doesn't show up. And we have all the protesters outside. It's crazy. He doesn't show up for 2 hours. So we had kicked off the whole thing.
Oh, geez.
And then just stopped.
Oh, no.
So
and it's hard to reshuffle speakers at that point,
right?
Because
you don't have them.
It doesn't make sense to go to go later in the if you have people after. Oh wow!
So we come to us all, and
no.
I'm just like, we have this quartet that we just keep sending up.
Oh geez,
to sing over and over again, and they've actually run out of songs at this point. So they're on video going, Have you guys heard of that song? Yeah, I think I've heard of that song. You guys want to sing that song? Like on stage.
Oh my gosh.
They're singing that way.
Oh, wow.
We're just playing random PragerU videos to try to keep people from not leaving, that type of thing.
Keep the attention.
But it stalls out. Okay.
Oh no.
Then finally I get word that he's on premise and he's done taking pictures with the VIPs. He's going to come down an elevator and walk across the hall. All right.
Okay.
So Steve House has a 10-minute speech.
Okay, good.
And then we've created this video.
Yeah.
That's Reagan, Trump, Reagan,
Oh,
Trump,
nice.
Reagan, Trump,
Smart.
Reagan, Trump. Like speech interacting with each other, going back and forth with this great culmination that the conservative movement is behind Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And out comes Donald Trump. And so that's what we've had planned.
Yeah.
So I sent Steve up. Steve, let's go. Oh, by the way, every time I'd walk on stage over the course of those 2 hours, I got booed. That was a really fun experience for me. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the chairman of the Western Conservative Summit, boo, because they just knew I was.
Yeah.
By the way, we have an app.
Yeah.
Have
look
you
what we don't
downloaded
have.
our
Yeah.
app?
It's like you're wasting our time.
So Steve House goes out. Steve gives this speech about uniting the conservative movement and all that stuff. And then the movie kicks on. And the video is 1 minute, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Right. No Trump. We've gone through 10 minutes.
What?
And now I've kicked off and I've gone through 2 hours of delay.
Yeah.
And now we're going to delay again.
Oh no.
Like it's like my worst nightmare. It's my first summit. I'm sweating, all that stuff. And there's no Trump. And we're like, the video's going, it's this great culmination. The lights are down. It's Reagan, Trump.
People are getting excited
Reagan,
about him.
Trump.
Yeah.
People are excited. No Trump. We're a minute into the video. There's 30 seconds left. No Trump.
Oh,
Dude
geez.
walks in behind stage 15 seconds before that video ends with the introduction of Donald Trump. And anytime that guy walks into a room, people bombard him, right?
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
just, boom, I want to shake the president's hand, right? That type of thing.
Yeah.
I push Clarice Navarro aside and her sweet family, right,
Oh, no.
is there. And I grab his elbow and I go, you need to get on the stage now. And I like grab
Yes.
him and I like shuffle him towards the edge and I basically push him out there
Nice.
right as the voice of God goes, ladies and gentlemen, the future president of the United States, Donald J. Trump. He turns back around to Clarice Navarro and the rest of them and goes, I will get pictures with you.
Yeah.
Just right afterwards, right? So he goes out and does a speech and I just like collapse in the
that's
back.
fantastic.
He comes back, does the picture. You know what he's doing
Yeah.
for those 10 minutes?
Ooh, do tell. What?
Hanging out with the dishwashers in the back.
Oh, no way. That's funny. That's
He's a
good.
cool dude.
That's really cool.
He's a cool. You get him
Yeah, that's-
backstage, you get him with people.
Yeah.
He's actually incredibly
That is a great
down
story.
to earth, cool guy.
Now, I've got some radio experiences that are somewhat similar. I'll keep them very short. I've been booed while doing stage announcements before. Get on stage, you're like, "Hi, welcome to the boo," because you're not.
We
they're
didn't
not,
pay to see you, dude.
And my answer always has been, "Well, thank you. I enjoy your presence here too." I said, but I gotta finish saying this stuff, or they don't let them come on stage. So we need to like make this, understand this relationship here. And they're like, "Okay," and then they cheer, and I'm like, "Thank you, okay." And I go, "And now I'm leaving," and then they cheer. I go, "Appreciate that." And the other one is I've been involved in a number of radio broadcasts where we have had massive technical problems, and 30 seconds before you go on the air, boom, everything works, and you're like. All right. And nobody else has any idea that you were just trying to put out fires 30 seconds ago. That's fantastic.
Oh, man. So I know it's hard to put on those events, and there's a lot of people working at the Gaylord right now, but we're going to be down there tomorrow, live broadcasting from 6 to 10 a.m. You're going to want to listen to that. We'll get to the calls here in a second. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A DeWalt Atomic 20-volt max cordless impact driver kit, valued at $160. Get it now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
back to the Jeff and Bill show. So tomorrow, we will be live broadcasting from the Trump rally at the Gaylord. I think tickets are sold out right now. But if you find a way down there, come swing by and say hi. We'll be right by the Starbucks at the Gaylord, right there by the Starbucks, starting at 6 a.m., going all the way till 10 a.m. Doors open at 10. Rally starts at 1. DJ T in the Mile High City, hanging out with our great listeners. You got to be a part of it tomorrow. And we'll see if we can carry the broadcast here. We'll do our best.
Yeah, we're going to try.
You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. Have a good day. We'll talk to you from the Trump rally tomorrow.